started his adverts, so our audio is live.
Yeah, so don't say shit. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
You have to tell me that because I'm usually go haywire before we go starting.
We may get ambushed by a small child at some point.
Oh, awesome.
And just assume she's one of the Fae.
And same thing with kittens and doggies and stuff. That's awesome. Yeah. Oops.
It works.
Wow.
Am I still muted? Do I successfully unmute myself?
I got some bad
you're
feedback somewhere. Something's going on my end. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
So yeah, you'll just want your Twitch muted to you have it open.
What the heck is going on?
What, me?
I don't hear any. It works for me. Yeah.
Okay.
Anna, I don't have the date of the show I did with just you and Mike before
Oh,
we
yeah.
moved it to this channel.
You can go into. They should be on YouTube on the Greyhawk.
I thought
Yeah.
you lost all that stuff when what's his face disappeared.
I know you did.
He's on there. It should be on there because I think that YouTube channel. If not, then I could probably find the.
What was his name?
Oh, it's the Greyhawk channel.
What, Shane?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look at that one and see because those videos should be there because that's the only way I know the date. So yeah.
Because I was gonna say I can't remember. I thought we did 1 or 2, but my point I'm getting to here is, with Jay, our first living Greyhawk show was January 23rd of 2020. So we've been doing these
back in 2018 or something. We did those
right before COVID. We did a show with Panda Kingdoms, Divers, High Folk, Verbalbomb, County of Ernst, and Tusmet, which kind of kicked all this off on a larger scale. So 2020, 2021, 2022, we're entering our 4th year here in 2023 of doing the show.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
Yep.
Soon you'll be going longer than Living Greyhawk.
Yeah,
We're
that's
about
the goal.
3/8 of the way there, right?
Yeah,
He lives
that's the
forever in
goal.
our hearts.
Are there TUs? Time? Do we have time?
Yeah, we
units?
have to fill in TUs.
Only
and stuff.
52, and the fairies will take half of them.
Okay.
We did.
And we still tell Greyhawk stories to this day.
Yep.
Absolutely. We did 13 shows in 2020. We only did 5 in 2021. That was a very busy year for me, buying a house, moving, new job, and
Thanks,
everything.
Scottish Jeff.
Yeah.
And last year, though, we did 9 shows. So the goal is one a month, and it's January, and here we are.
Yeah, we can see if we can do at least 10 this year. That's we beat last year.
Absolutely.
At least beat last year. Yep.
So,
Mark, did you end up with a shield?
I don't know how to do that. How can I?
No. Did you end up with one of the physical shields from Gen Con or anything like that?
Oh no! I did not.
I got it.
Yep.
Eric, okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Eric showed it to us before.
Yeah.
Now nobody asked me to fit into any of my clothes from the Greyhawk era because that was long. That was 75 pounds ago. We're not gonna talk about it.
Yeah.
COVID was not kind to any of us.
Exactly. Yep.
In the before
I
times,
still got my fleece.
Nice.
Ooh, look at that. That's great.
Conrad made me an Ayuz colored shirt. Conrad
It's
Branderblum.
finally working.
Ooh la la.
So
Hey,
Eric,
Russell.
I actually just got an email, like within the last 3 months, an advertisement from Shutterfly, and someone took some pictures of us at the final Battle Interactive, and there are pictures of you and me and Brad standing in front of the Feldboard.
What's up,
and
Josh?
that a long time ago.
That's cool.
Oh, I haven't seen you. Did you buy it?
Not yet, but it is. I can probably find those
I
pictures.
saw some pictures. I probably saw
Awesome.
pictures hidden away too. That'd be fun just to throw up on Twitter every now and then of like, yesterday, yeah.
Still getting that, Josh. Boom. You still got that because I'm not erasing it. It's too much work. Just putting out some words out there, everyone. Sorry. Going through my normal stuff. Running the show here.
Now, people love those giant cloth boards.
You had a good time with them.
We were debating for a long time if we should do it digitally, but we decided we wanted to have the tactile pieces that you can move around.
Eric, where are you
I know
located
you're
currently
already
these
watching.
days?
I am currently in Fairfax, Virginia.
So you're still in Geoff.
Yes.
And Mark, where are you located?
I am also a local here.
In Fairfax?
Thank you, Rogue.
Technically, yes.
Oh, so you guys probably have seen each other since the end of Living Greyhawk.
Unfortunately, no.
It's a big
Only
state.
once.
We've done a couple Gen Con trips.
Yeah, that's true. We did.
Not a lot, but it's definitely been a lot of like hiding and coding there. It hasn't been as much as I would like.
Oh, we
Well,
should-
I'm glad
should
we
get
could
together
facilitate
real
this
soon,
little miniature reunion for you.
Yeah.
Mark. We should do something, Mark.
I agree.
My brother-in-law San wants to run a old school. He's inspired by Jay. Wants to run
Yes, great to hear. Thank you.
old school Renaissance style game.
So,
Yes.
did you hear the crew we have for GaryCon there, Eric?
No.
It's you, Anna, and Ed Greenwood. Tony's not coming now, so instead we have Bill Meinhardt, who's a legend there, and then we have Andrew Valaskaskis, Fate of the Norns, who works with Ed, is doing that stuff with Ed. He
that
is.
stuff looks so cool.
And then I may add a sixth, but we got a good group for that game. It's gonna be fun.
That's amazing.
Can't wait.
I'm gonna miss Tony though.
I know we're all
Yeah.
gonna miss Tony. We're all gonna
She's
miss
my
Tony.
partner in crime.
But Bill Meinhardt runs a fighter mage thief instead of a fighter mage, so yeah, but it'll be good for a one shot. And Bill's bringing a lot of terrain with him too, because he doesn't live far away. He's helping me out a lot, which is really cool.
Cool.
All I got is dungeon tiles
That works at a con.
and my little dry erase marker.
Hello, Mike.
I've gone bonkers during COVID with Kickstarters for various things. I don't want to anger Jay's sponsors, but I now have the lower end 3D terrain kind of stuff coming in and transparent 2D minis, things like that.
But dude, that's you get what works for your game. It's cool. You won't have
Well, I haven't run a game at home since COVID, so my wife is like, why are we spending all this money on 3D terrain? And I'm like, because we will one day, and it's going to be epic. Like, I've got the battle maps that are scrolls. The guy did the 100-foot long
yeah.
scrolls. I've got like 2 of those. That's the guy who does the lay flat
That's awesome.
map book. Yeah, I've got like lay flat map books and all this. No more drawing on just a Chessex map.
No more of that crap.
No.
No, it's all good.
Heresy. Those are great. So you
Nah, they are. However you play is wonderful. I'm just being smart.
Yep.
So,
It's good to see that someone is taking up the mantle from Ledla Kafka having
Yes.
a Kickstarter addiction. Yeah.
oh my gosh. Leonard's
Yeah.
Kickstarter.
Yeah, he always bragged about his Kickstarter addiction, so it's good. You're taking
Yeah, I've been
up.
cut off.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than miniatures. Our addiction is getting a little crazy. I like Bill. I'm like, Bill, can you give me some? This is Bill the Measure Crafter. Can you give me some orcs on boards and direwolves and stuff? And so he brings me 80 of them. I'm like, all painted. I'm like,
Is he 3D
okay.
printing them, or is that from
Oh
like
yeah,
the
we
papers?
got a resin one running now too, along with our two PLA ones. Yeah.
Can I share pictures in this chat?
No. If you do, you'll crash the stream if you do a share and a zoom. So what you need to do is you need to, if you've got any pictures, you need to Discord them to me, or get Discord to someone who can Discord them to me, and then I'll risk opening them up.
Well, you two should just get in touch with each other on the Discord.
Yeah, it's too late now though. I'm live streaming now, so I can't.
Oh no, you're good. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just found these pictures.
Yeah, if you share your Zoom, it'll pop. That's
Oh,
why
the Zoom's on a different computer. I can't. The pictures are on the other.
Yeah, but if you can send the Discord to Casey, then he can get it over to me. That would be fine.
Sure.
I can get them to Casey. That I can
Do that. Well, we'll do a piggyback, and I'll get him over.
Yeah, then.
He still has a little bit of this intro left before we start, but not too much.
Good evening, everyone. I know we're babbling a lot before. Rico.
Just tell me how many you send, Mark. So,
Should be
I've got-
4 sent.
okay, I got all 4.
Is that new? Alex? I never heard of that. Ghost Slayer's Guide.
Dude, Eric, I didn't realize this. I opened up Shutterfly and there are like 50 pictures in here of that final battle. I don't know who took these pictures.
Oh,
but
this
it's
should be
amazing.
awesome. I gotta open up Discord on my main machine here.
They're about to show up, Jay.
If you hear a zap noise or whatever, just
1, 2, 3, 4.
I got a lot going on here, so hold on one second. Let's hope this works.
Now downloading them is a very,
they're
very manual
they're
process.
JFIFs? What is that file?
I don't know. I can convert them if you need me to.
Well,
I didn't even try to see if I could open them.
I don't know if they're going to even show. So hold on one second.
Let me try.
No, wait.
Yeah, it opened right up for me.
All right, that doesn't mean it's going to show on the XSplit broadcaster thing. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, that's a big old city map.
1 second. No, late last second. All right. Let me cut them, put them in the proper folder, and then we're going to come live in a second here. Yes, I'm playing games right before we are going live.
Oh, Mark, before we start, I should tell you my Geoff connection.
Oh, okay. All right.
You guys had a player, Teo Sabadia.
Oh, yeah.
Teos used to travel a lot for work. Maybe he still does. And he would come to Houston for work. And whenever he did, I would run Bandit Kingdoms games for him and 5 other local Bandit Kingdoms players in the Houston area. We would usually go to his hotel room.
Of his stuff.
Hello.
And Teos and I, that's how I know, like, everything I know about Geoff is basically from talking to Teos or other people who traveled and came back. But he and I co-wrote
thank you for the
a special mission, which was half set in Geoff and half set in the Bandit Kingdom.
Awesome. Yeah, and Teos and Sean are now mastering Dungeons podcast together.
Good evening,
an awesome
everyone.
Podcast.
I apologize. I missed that raid in. I really am sorry. I was, normally I'm on top of things, but I got so I'm pulling out stuff last second here. Good evening. Hope everyone's
and hi,
doing
Mike.
well. Yeah, we got a lot of
pre-chat
in this one. I'm Jay Killer Gazumba. With me is my partners in crime, Anna B. Meyer, and the wonderful Greyhawk Mike Bridges, along with Casey Brown or Draco when we have a Living Greyhawk discussion.
Casey.
Welcome back after many games in 2 drink minimum and many discussions on with Ed Greenwood and some other topics. Eric Mengi. Eric.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
A pleasure. And brand new, first time ever, Mr. Mark Yudson. Mark, welcome.
Welcome, Mark.
Hello, friends. It's an honor to be here.
I appreciate you coming on. This is going to be a fun discussion tonight. We're going to continue our series in Living Greyhawk. This is our first one. Casey, why don't you take it away while I got to do some cleanup behind the scenes here.
Okay, happy to. So I'm just going to dive right into it. Eric, give us a quick refresher on how you got into RPGA, how long you were a Triad member, that kind of stuff, real quick, and then briefly into D&D AL.
Well, it was many years ago, at the turn of the millennium. We had just started 3rd edition. They had announced this new thing called Living Greyhawk. And several of the local gamers, mostly Shalom West being the ringleader of them, were putting together something called the Legacy of Valor. Because our assigned region in Living Greyhawk was the Grand Duchy of Geoff, which was overrun with giants. And they thought it would be fun to run a completely unofficial weekend event, which was the Fall of Geoff, where everyone plays a character that is killed by giants. And it was kind of like an old school style competitive adventure where you got to see how far you would last. And every round, they just turned up the heat. And it was amazing as players just started dropping 1, 2, 3, and then in droves all over to the giant bloodbath on Sunday where everyone was pretty much wiped out to a man.
This was a convention long special event. It wasn't just one slot, if I remember correctly.
It was 3 days. Started.
Mark,
Friday
were you
night.
at this event?
No, I came in after this.
Oh, okay. So
And
for the audience, this was what we would now call year -2, 1998 of Living Greyhawk. Is that or 99?
99. So it was
year -1. It was just before Living Greyhawk started.
Right. I think it had happened months before the 3rd edition went live. We were all doing. Were we in 2E? Oh heavens, it's been so while. Because we might not have had
2.5
the
E or
3E rule
something.
set
Yeah,
yet.
that
I think 3E launched at Gen Con 2000.
2000.
So it was 99. We would have been in 2E. So we
So
had
to
two
put things in
characters getting killed.
perspective, like I definitely recall, like it was my freshman year in college when I started, and I started Greyhawk as a player in the very first year. And the Legacy of Valor is absolutely pertinent because that was one of the most mind-blowing events I had ever heard of. And that was a big hook for me, both as a player and as a point of motivation for wanting to get involved and be able to contribute and be a part of this, just amazing, wild experience.
Yeah. Mark, I've been doing these shows with all the regions for years now, and I have yet to hear of anything that rivals this Legacy of Valor that was done to this level, this size, and just kind of knowing a living campaign was coming, because the regions were assigned based on RPGA play numbers. And the regions, so walk me through it. DC, Virginia,
Maryland.
What else was Josh?
Maryland, West Virginia, Delaware.
So the play numbers were there to where you guys got to pick one of the most epic regions in Greyhawk. It's where the Against the Giants saga is set, right? To some extent, and whatnot.
And so to just kind of establish, like for me, my involvement in Greyhawk, I joined initially as a player, I think in March of the first like official year of like league play. And like it wasn't until the end of year one where there was an opening, and I was very, very excited, and I applied to join this team of incredible and talented creative writers, and was accepted. So I got to experience both the player side and the author and contributor side as well.
How does one apply? Was there an actual application?
That's a good question.
Not to sound...
No, it's fair. I think that so Geoff, I definitely played a lot. I traveled a lot for play and only for play. And we had a very active in-character role-playing board in Geoff. And it was a huge part of the appeal because there was so much constantly going on. There were dozens of players who were actively playing by post in the cities and the settlements every day. Like in an hour, you'd see a dozen posts go by. Half a dozen players is not just two people talking back and forth. And the team, like everybody, like the players and the administration built a community. And through that, they absolutely did. They advertised there was an opening coming available, and they asked us to submit our, DMing resume. And I did, and there was an interview process, and it was chill, and they're good people. But yeah, no, I did apply, and it turned out, they felt that was a good mesh, and it's history from there.
So you actually asked yourself the question I was going to ask you for me was, what years were you a Triad member, Mark?
So I played year one, and it was the cusp of year one to year two where I joined the Triad. Sure. And then the original story, and I was very, very impressed with how Brad and Eric I'm having a brain fart. The guy before me,
David, Robert,
the guy with the hat and the glasses. No, all right. Well, there's a lot of hats.
West, Brian Lamprecht, I believe.
Lamprecht was the guy I basically backfilled. They built a very rigorous, structured, but still malleable and flexible approach to, we're going to deliver a 5-year game. It's going to be a 5-year campaign, 1 to 20, and like we're going to accomplish a lot of things. And my mind was blown, and it is like that style and approach to campaigning like has influenced all of my DMing since, and I DM every week and have for the last 15-20 years.
Nice. But how long were you in the Triad role?
So I started in the beginning of year 2, and because they had a 5-year plan, I thought I would, like, they had all said we're going to do 5 years, and then we're going to go out. So I figured I would also do 5 years. So I started in year 2,
Mhm.
I carried through year 5, and then for the following triad, I basically tried to act as a point of continuity to help them, to give them some seed ideas, to help them apply the same rigor that Brad and Eric have been able to share with me to their approach to their campaign.
I can do
You
that.
know,
Okay.
worked with them for the first year of the second campaign, and then stepped back. So I was in for 5 years.
So you got out in year 6?
Correct.
Okay. Eric, remind me, were you a maniac who did all 8 years, or when did you
Hell
drop
no.
out? I think
I
we
tapped
found
out.
one maniac.
I had to tap out after 2005 because we were told to by the Circle of Six develop a 5-year program, and at that point in time, we're like, I've been doing it for 5 years.
Thanks, John.
Time for me to step back and let other people have a go at it.
Okay,
And
so
when,
you
Teos Jose joined,
right.
And
You were
Elisa
year
Clary.
1.
and
You were
Sean
year
Hillman.
0, right? Or shortly after year 1.
I'm sorry.
You were year 0 or year 1 when you became Dryad?
Year 1. It was David Quick and Shalom West and Brian Lampreck, I believe, when I joined. And Shalom and Dave wanted to go do Delta Green.
Oh, right.
And they
Okay.
brought in me and Brian. Sorry, it was me and Brad to take over.
Gotcha. So
Yeah,
you
no
two
problem.
here, Mark and Eric, worked closely together as Triad members for 4 years, it sounds like. That's what I was trying to get a grasp of in my brain before we switch gears to the meta orgs.
So
Yeah.
much communication. He's probably sick of me by the end of it.
And I will also note, in the first year before I became Triad, you know, I was looking for area opportunities to basically volunteer, and I had basically reached out to Eric and Brad, and then during the first year, even before Triad, you know, we organized a convention at George Mason, which is a whole story unto itself. That was never actually registered with George Mason. So we literally
Nice.
held a convention in George Mason, and people were just like, who are all these people and what are they doing in classrooms?
Save a lot of money.
Yeah, no, it was we've spent not a dime on space and facilities for that convention.
Wow.
It was hysterical. And oh my God, the fraternities were real angry Sunday night when like they went to their classrooms to have their like little meetings, and that's full of gamers and battle maps everywhere. They're like,
Wow, I can imagine. Because rooms get booked at universities for that kind of activity.
and we did a battle interactive and all sorts of good stuff. So I mean, I was trying to get involved as much as I could, even before I became Triad. But I digress.
Before we dive into the meta orgs with you, we know Eric has gone on to do other living organized play. I'll use organized play because I don't put AL into a living campaign frame. But did you do 4th edition or Pathfinder Society or anything since Living Greyhawk, or did you just find that once you stepped aside, a lot of us have talked about burnout, or we needed to move on with our lives, get married, have kids, grad school, whatever. Did you do anything organized after LG, Mark?
As a player, not so much. As an author, when Greyhawk Reborn kicked off,
Oh, okay.
I basically was connected with Dave Guerreri, who is an amazing person.
Yep.
And
Very
I did a fair amount of writing.
Okay.
I wrote for about a year.
Okay.
And then basically trying to follow in the spiritual essence and succession of, you know, everything we created here. And eventually we had some, I don't want to say creative differences because that's very cliche. As we basically kind of step through the meta orgs and everything today, you'll note that my style of play is I am very supportive of and endorse a lot of like competition and rivalry between players that that will definitely come out. And that wasn't really Dave's approach, and I get that, and I support that. So so I basically handed off my content, and he went his way, and I went mine.
Okay, that's cool. We might want to tell the audience real quick. Greyhawk Reborn is a 5e now continuation, mostly of the Keeland Living Greyhawk stuff, right? That's kind of where Greyhawk Reborn was born. Dave, you mentioned, was a Keeland Triad member or player. I always forget.
Keelan.
I think so. Yeah, because they
definitely.
continued the Keeland. Yeah.
He was head of the Regulators, which was a gaming group in South Central Pennsylvania, and I believe he was also one of the Triad members in Keelan for a while.
Right. So That's really interesting. The thing about Greyhawk Reborn, I don't know if this is still true with VTT, but the author had to run the adventure, right?
Yeah,
Because
I
they were
think
trying
that's
to avoid IP issues with Wizards of the Coast.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a big kicker for me as well because I just, I wrote a lot of content, but I couldn't travel and I couldn't, run the adventures they needed to. So I was like, this is
Right.
not sustainable for me.
Right. There's a like it's fun to write adventures. And I've written some myself, but you need to be able to either run them a lot to kind of give you that mental reward, or you need to be able to sell them to give you a financial reward for that time and effort, you put into it. So anyway, now that we've got some background info out of the way, let's just dive into these meta orgs.
Yeah, let's do that. That'd be
So
awesome.
for the audience, meta orgs are organizations that the characters can join. Living Greyhawk had various rules about access, classes, prestige classes, etc. And sometimes they're just for background. So we're going to dive in here to what Mark and Eric created. In 5e terms, they could be part of your background.
So I have a
sorry.
bunch of docs here. So you just tell me. I got from part 3 down to part 10. I got multiple docs here. Secular, sacred, elves, dwarves, gnomes,
So
military. Clear sky.
before we jump too deep into the meta org, so I
Yep.
mean, let's take a step back. So
Sure.
meta orgs were kind of brought into play the concept, outside of Geoff, just as a general thing. And like originally they were kind of approached as like in play in League, in order to gain access to certain splat books, feats, and equipment, you had to meet certain criteria. And so someone up in League land said, okay, this is our approach, this is how we're going to apply rigor, this is how you get things. And we're like, okay, but let's make things interesting. So this is where the special kind of like Geoff spin on things came in. So my exposure to Geoff, I started off as a player. Like the two biggest things, well, the story, amazing, but outside of the story, which is amazing, the things that initially leapt out at me is like the very first battle interactive. Like I had not participated in a battle interactive before Geoff. And for those of you guys who aren't familiar with the battle interactive, imagine basically a collaborative event. In League play, you had tables of 4 to 6 players playing concurrently, and you had 20, 30, 40 tables in a room, basically of players who were each participating and representing some aspect of the battle, and every table, their outcome affected every other. And this is in the Wild West days where there are no formal rules, and if you wanted to fireball someone else's table, you could, and you did. So it was crazy. So, and we also had like a mortality rate of like consistently 30% of characters going into a battle did not come out. Like that was just a regular thing. And like we had 2 battles a year at the minimum going across 5 years. And like we never had mortality rates that were any kinder than 30% per battle. Like people expected their characters were coming in and they weren't coming out. So basically that established that, plus the role-playing board, the in-character play-by-post board I mentioned earlier, built this sense of rivalry, and characters took a lot of pride in both. We very quickly saw a lot of like gaming clubs turn into like in-character adventuring bands or companies. And so you would literally, I remember going as a player to conventions and people be walking in literally carrying a legitimate flag, a banner of their gaming group. And
wow,
it was all trash talking all the time. It was glorious. And so like,
It's fun.
absolutely. So, so you had one kind of angle where characters were basically, building up prestige for their adventuring company. And then you also, there were like minor perks, nothing major, but like, a lot of good bragging rights. And so at the adventuring company level, well, okay, now we took that, and expanded upon that with the meta orgs. And so with the meta orgs, we wanted to give players an opportunity to find a place within the region where they could contribute, they could build, they could grow. And the triad before me, which I tried to basically continue, was to basically support that activity and then let those actions to actually take hold in the region. And there were a lot of interesting cases where a player did something crazy and that became canon. Like, that's how it is. I apologize if you're a small child in the background.
I don't hear anything.
We're good.
So
If
the
it
other
works.
element Eric talked about was the Legacy of Valor. This is another instance where player agency was supported, and the actions that took place in Legacy of Valor had ripple effect and literally shaped the landscape of both the story, but the actual terrain and the organizations and everything else. And that basically shaped the story. So we wanted to give players an opportunity to invest from a story perspective and actually be able to, affect change. So we wanted to make sure also there was a home for everyone. So we spent a lot of time and effort to make sure that no matter what character you were playing, what class, what vein or interest or pursuit you wanted to go with, there was an organization for you to find a home. And so we were perfectly content with building more orgs than anyone ever used, but it also helped us flesh out the world. So for example, one of the major underlying themes of the region was religion. So our religious book was huge, and there was an immense amount of trash talking for religion, and it was glorious. And then the army basically was also a huge element, because walking in the door, the region of Geoff was oriented towards these underdog rebels trying to retake their land from giants. Like, day one, we were at war. There was no question about it. War was going to be a central factor in everything that we did, whether or not, folks wanted to. And hold on. Hey, you. Sorry. My little fairy just popped through here, so I was going to see if she wanted to come on camera. I was going to say Faye was the other major aspect. So we had a huge army meta org, and then we also,
Military.
Eric and Brad did an amazing job of really playing up the prestige of like certain regiments within the army. So the Olwithi were our rangers, and there were massive bragging rights if you basically wanted to become a ranger. If you were to become a ranger, the criteria to basically join the Olwithi was not just you need this many ranks and this feat and blah blah blah. No, you had to like actually do cool stuff. And so like that was kind of the starting point for a lot of the meta orgs. It's like we're fleshing out. It basically encouraged us as authors to take a step back and say, okay, well, let's look at the army. What does the army composition actually look like? And we had the other thing I got to say is we had some amazing volunteers in our region. Like I'm gonna do a quick shout out to James Quick, who is absolutely instrumental in basically helping to shape and sculpt the original, like the army concept and components. He had numbers down for every individual unit type. It was great. And so I apologize, distraction here.
Is he related to David Quick?
Nope.
No.
Oh, okay.
Not to my knowledge. I think he denied it.
He denied. He vehemently denied that. Yeah.
He's like, no, I'm not everything. And they look nothing alike either.
That's funny.
But that was one of the wonderful things about the meta orgs is that we got to appoint individual volunteers to head up each of the meta orgs. So if you wanted to, you could volunteer and become a point of contact for the Olwithi, or the point of contact for the Chosen of Khalees, or the point of contact for the God Help Us All Midnight Ravens, which was our thieves guild, and that was just going to be trouble, and we knew it. But that meant we got to offload all of our work onto people who had an investment to grow their meta org. So they would actually go around and recruit people into their meta org at conventions, or try to do it on the Yahoo groups, which Mark mentioned earlier, which is pretty much Discord 20 years ago. If we were running this today, we would totally have a Discord and probably have each meta org would have its own own little server or channel on your Discord.
File
that you
server,
got
yeah.
into, that you only get into if you're part of that meta org, so you could know all the secret stuff.
And yeah, we would not have been able to achieve what we had if it weren't for all the amazing volunteers who, stepped up and were willing to basically do that role playing. And so, to the prior point, there was just constant play by post, but the we obviously, if someone was going to basically lead up an organization, we said, okay, you need to sign this little NDA, and if you're going to be a member of the army, you can't. If you're going to run the army, you can't have a character in the army, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, I got my start by being what we called a meta org coordinator in the Bandit Kingdoms. Around year 3, I had made an elf out of the Felry Forest. In canon, there's these Van Larentian elves. It's a Sylvan elf clan that's fighting IUs, and where's Gary? It's here in the Gazetteer. So I really kind of dove into that lore, and it's also in IUs the Evil. And my predecessor in the Bandit Kingdoms meta org triad guy was like, well, then fine, you be the meta org coordinator for it, and here's the rules on how to make a meta org on the circle and whatnot. And we had different people for different meta orgs, and you're absolutely right. You had the volunteer, we needed a pyramid of labor to make living Greyhawk work.
So we started off, Army had its own book. It had an author, it got fleshed out. And again, like, it encouraged, Eric and Brad and I to basically invest the extra time to say, okay, let me flesh this out. Let me ask the right questions so that this is no longer just like some reference on paper somewhere, but it's like a living, breathing thing. And so we did the Army. Religious was a no-brainer because, arguably a lot of the biggest bragging outside of adventuring companies was very much religion, and the whole old faith versus the Sewell religion thing was a huge, absolutely entertaining dynamic to the region. We had our secular orgs because we wanted to have one for everybody. We took time to invest in the demi-human nations or sub-nations as well. So you had an entire elven book, a gnomish book, a dwarvish book. God, the trash cooking was glorious. And then one of the things we had that I felt was pretty, I think, unique at the time, was we had our secret meta orgs. And so the secret meta orgs was a thing that basically fleshed out, and they were organizations that players knew existed within the region, but we didn't necessarily advertise that they were an opportunity for a player or a character to join. But I think that Eric and Brad and I did a really good job of, when someone would ask us something, we would say yes and. So if someone was like, I have a distinct recollection my first year as Triads, this is year 2, I had like a 5th level character is like, I'm going to break in to the Duke's Keep and I'm going to try and kidnap the baby. I'm like, okay, well, let's schedule some time for that, because that's not something I can do play by post in the next 20 minutes, so and then, as certain characters started to join organizations, like, absolutely, we had characters being like, I want to join the Thieves Guild, how do I do that? It's like, okay, well, you're in a module, or you are on the main forum, or you contact the Triad, like, I'd like to reach out to a dude. Like, Eric and Brad and I were literally 24/7 DMs for the entire 1,000 player base. And if somebody emailed us, we're like, yeah, sure, let's do it.
We were pretty dedicated, but we weren't that quite dedicated in the BK. We used the Yahoo groups. We had an in-character board. We ended up killing a PC in-game specifically because of something he said on the in-character board. He wrote a letter to a Boneheart and published it. So said Boneheart came for him later. But so it's
that was Wild West right there, by the way.
Yeah,
you just have the Boneheart show up and murderize a player character.
Well, it was a bone shadow. It was just Keek. It was only Keek.
Only.
Yeah. But that's, that was the glory of the IU's meta region. We could play with those toys. We didn't really do much with the Fae. I mean, we did. We would have Fae, but they weren't a cultural phenomenon.
To put things in perspective, though, like, at this time, I was 21 years old. single and fueled by Mountain Dew. So
Yeah.
like
Yes.
Yeah,
somebody
fair.
sending me a message, I'm like, sure, let's D&D. I love D&D. Do it.
That's why we brought
It's
him on.
amazing
It's
we
like,
didn't get paid for that.
Look at all
we
that
can
hair.
upload everything onto Mark. This is Brad. I'm like, yes.
Look at all that hair on you guys. My gosh.
Wow, Jay.
I got most of it still.
I know.
Nope.
So
not
one day
here,
it's all
no.
going to fall out, Casey.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, we should
It's already turning gray.
Yeah. So
Right.
who, the gentleman in the middle?
Brad Lester.
Okay.
Yeah, we had Brad on,
We did. I
but he
thought
was
so.
in a very dark room, I believe,
Oh,
when he
that's
joined
right.
us.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
Brad Lester.
Hey,
He
Mike.
kept
Yeah.
us sane, and he did all the work.
Oh,
I think
my
I reached
God.
out to Brad to join us today, but he wasn't able to make it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's this big battle. Look at this. Someone, my gosh.
Yeah,
It's
that's
huge.
amazing.
So that was Jose Ortiz did that. We bought the biggest piece of felt or cloth that we could find, and then he drew out the entire battlefield. Then he drew all of those little icons. We printed them out many times, and there with a paper cutter, gluing them
And there you
on.
go. Here's goblins and looks like
That is pretty grand
orcs
quill.
And we glued them to foam board, and then put Velcro on the back of it so they would stick to the fabric.
oh,
I'm pretty sure that one in the middle is one of the player tables at the convention is one adventuring company. And like this, I mean, this battle you're looking at here was like the culmination of like lessons learned from 5 years of battle interactives, but like characters had absolute like player agency to be like, we're just gonna go that way. We're gonna take that hill. And we're like,
right.
Okay.
That's
lot
a
of
great
goblins.
visualization.
What
Hey,
happened to
you
that
ran-
map?
Yeah, you ran these
Yeah,
battles
that's a good
using
question, Mike.
D&D 3rd edition, or did you have like a battle system simplified?
3rd edition.
Oh,
We-
wow.
So
Well-
the idea kind of was that there was the players who were the wolf pack,
Right.
which would be the elite strike team with that they're associated with a unit, and they would attack the humanoid unit, which
Yeah.
you fought their leaders, while your troops fought the common goblin troops.
Ah, gotcha.
Right.
And that all happened in the background
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
was
that's a
off
good way
screen
to
in
do it.
the.
And you could kind of extrapolate, right? If the PCs beat the bad guys as leaders,
Mhm.
then
Yeah.
your troops beat the evil troops. You know, that's yeah.
But
I mean,
to
that's
put
how
things
we
in
did it too.
perspective, we would schedule these battle interactives. We would have folks across the United States, you know, California, you
Look
know,
at this. Oh,
overseas,
true.
UK, Australia, like come in consistently. If we had a convention space with 42 tables, they were sold out. And like there would be 42 different icons on this map, each representing a different wolf pack that was basically in flight. And
It's insane.
I mean, they would, you know, in a 4-hour period, like any one of those tables could be in, you know, half a dozen different combats. And let me tell you, that was the definition of untiered. And to spice things up, we also had like, what's the antithesis of a hero unit? An anti-hero unit.
Shock troops.
We had
Black
like
Staffers.
named villain NPCs that were the most ridiculous stat blocks I could come
I
up
can
with,
imagine.
and I would hand them off the DMs and be like, "Walk around and just screw tables.
Oh my
Go."
God.
Just like there was a point I remember to put things in the spirit of ridiculous. I remember there was like a 4th level
That's what
table
that says.
minding their business, like in a
Can't read
battle, and a forest giant showed up with a quiver of arrows, and the arrows had ceramic heads with black puddings in them, and he was just pop, pop, pop. Sorry, knight, there goes your armor. And I remember the 4th level table was hiding from this forest giant, waiting for the forest giant to leave the table. And another player table of level 2s decided to come to the level 4 table to save them. And the forest were like, no, hide, get down. They're like, what's going on, guys? So
It's amazing. Go ahead, Jay.
I have to. Time for Jay to be a little bit of a dick here, or Jay.
Oh,
Mark, you look like a cross between John Cryer and Matthew Broderick in this picture.
I don't know how that's being a dick.
I mean, I'm just saying I really go, is that John Cryer or Matthew Broderick or both? I'm sorry, but it's like, come on. I mean, this is 2006, 2005?
That was 2005.
All right,
That
so
was
it's
the
not that
50th.
long ago.
That was the Siege of Gorna.
Sorry.
And
See,
that
I
was-
even
the
heard
second
about
one.
the Siege of Gorna and the Bandit Kingdoms. Out of all the other regions, the one that me and Texas would hear about was your guys' region.
I
Just
do
the
have
role
to-
playing and these interactives. 42 tables would be 252 people. That's just players. You got to throw in another 42 dungeon masters. So now you're at like 294. That's
No, we had
massive.
insane.
Most of us other regions, we were doing like 100 to 150 at Interact.
We had amazing volunteers. I cannot stress enough. I am
Plus
super
play
thankful
testing,
for
slot
everybody.
zeros.
What is this? What is this hill with the rainbows here? What is that? What this right here? That's got to be
It
something.
probably says something bridge, but I
Oh,
can't.
it's a bridge, Rainbow Bridge.
Ah.
Oh yeah, that's where you can get ferry reinforcements.
Oh, okay.
Wow, look at that memory.
That's awesome.
Wow, I was like, what is that?
Someone in the audience, Rainbow Bridge of Asgard.
Rainbow
That's just the
Bride of Asgard.
Asgard. Duh, there was.
Yeah.
Now I will say the Gorna battle. I have to tell another Gorna story. So this is the second Gorna battle. So year 3, PCs really
Oh
feeling
my
their
gosh.
oats. They've been winning battles. They get to Gorna the first time. So Gorna was the old capital, and they're like, "All right, we're ready. We're gonna take back our region." Well, there were some things the Giants had been holding in reserves, and I think my favorite little just nitnoid story from the first battle of Gorna was, so the PCs would basically sieging the walls. So a lot of battles, it would be common style to either A, be defending walls, or B,
Mhm.
attacking walls. So PCs are attacking the walls, battles going on, there are no breaks, and like if you don't clear a wave fast enough, the next wave shows up. It's not great. People trying to basically keep head on swivel. And so they're minding their business, and like Giants are catapulting stuff at them. They're trebucheting stuff at them, and like they're basically trying to fight off these monsters. They're making reflex saves, and like these just heaps of meat were being thrown over the walls at the PCs, and they're like, "This is gross, whatever. Not gonna
They're
worry about
regenerated.
this." Right? They
They're
basically tried to
trolls.
dodge. That's exactly what it was. They were troll bombs. They
think
had
we'd heard
chopped up
about this.
trolls, and they
We've
had
all-
thrown them at the
We've all done
How
it. Tim's
quickly
done
do
it. We've all-
trolls-
yes.
Regrow.
3 hit points per round.
So you get them on a roof somewhere. A minute later, they've got 30 hit points.
You figured
Not
out your
bad.
negatives then and all on, but yeah.
We surprised a lot of people 20 years ago. Let me
Yeah,
tell
that's
you.
I like that.
It's a great plan. It's a great plan.
Also, rust monsters.
Rust monsters are good too.
That the Giants, especially the Hill Giants, had just discovered, since they all had hide armor
Right,
and
right.
gloves,
Gloves, yeah.
that rust monsters were the best pets to have, and were found they also breed like cockroaches,
Uh-oh.
and
we
so they
also-
were just mass producing rust monsters all over the place.
Now I want to stat out a dire rust monster in 3.5
Oh my
stats.
God.
Surely
Yeah.
someone has done that.
And they found out if you punch a rust monster, it curls up like a pill bug that looks a lot like a boulder
that can be thrown.
that can be thrown because you're a giant.
Yeah.
That's why the players were not terribly happy with us.
There are a few
sometimes.
people I think is more devious than me when it comes to 3.x tactics, but Eric is one of them.
One of my other favorites was we had the fire giant flamethrower squad with they were fire giants with basically pyro hydra in backpacks, and they were just holding out the necks. Just
That was a response to James Quick, by the way, with his master blaster he put up with his half-orc barbarian friend, and he Quick played a gnome illusionist who was sitting in the back doing this.
Sitting in the bag.
And the Giants saw that and went, and then
Good
they started
idea.
loading pyrohydras on their back, doing the same thing.
Did he
Part
have
of
legs?
the living campaign was when the players came up with something that was good cheese or bad cheese.
Mhm.
The triads would often react, like the Tomb of Spells or whatever came out, and there was the anticipate teleportation spell became legal. And that thing just started jacking up a lot of BK encounters because we had demons like Baragura who could teleport. And we used that trope a lot. Oh, here come demons out of nowhere. Well, the players figured that out. Well, as soon as we figured out that they figured that out, and the players started teleporting everywhere at 9th and 11th levels, we started using that spell. They would teleport in an adventure, and then next thing they know, the bad guys had 3 rounds to buff, and we're waiting for them. So it was a bit of an arms race in Living Greyhawk in 3rd edition.
No, we had,
which is fun, but sometimes it get really tiring.
Yeah, especially above level 11.
Oh, those players outnumbered us 50-1.
Now, we did have a lot of incredible volunteers, and occasionally some of the volunteers would get a little overeager. And so I distinctly recall that, like, when we would have the battles or other big events, and I know we're supposed to be talking about meta orgs, but
that's fine. It's good reminiscing.
We would definitely create those villainous hero units to basically go around and, like, again, part of it was extra challenge, part of it was greater bragging rights, part of it is because you also had, like, when you went into the battle, you had players who were on one level of, like, the power gaming spectrum to the other, and, like, we wanted everybody to be able to participate, everyone to feel like their contributions mattered, and then also, like, the super power gamers, we wanted them to, like, find something to do, and, like, sure, they'd go chase off after the anti-hero, and, like, sometimes they would get them and sometimes we get them. It's never been competitive. I will always root for the players, but I want to make them sweat. And so
yeah, that's what we want, some sweat.
The volunteers would also propose these hero units, and let me tell you, like, I spent a lot of time having to kick back a lot of the hero units because it was very important to us that, as ridiculous and fun as the wild battles were, everything had to be on theme. Everything had to be in story. We were very much giants and nature and, fae and stuff. And, like, people started coming in like, I've got this half golem, half vampire, like, artificer.
He's indestructible
guy. And I'm like,
yeah.
I mean, cool, it's challenging, but it doesn't fit the theme. They're like, what do you mean?
Right.
Like,
they should have emailed it to us in the BK. We would have been half golem, half vampire. That's perfect.
Yeah, that'd be great for you guys.
Right. We actually were doing that kind of weird shit.
But to bring this back to meta orgs, because we're doing this battle interactive, part of your requirements, because we had, like, tiers, like rank 1 was where you joined, rank 2, rank 3. I think we went up to rank 4 usually, right, Mark? And you had to build your way up. You just couldn't. And the way you did that was participating in adventures or interactives. And if you were in the army, a lot of that would be participate in these battle interactives and get a commendation, do good work, which really push the players to take the advantage whenever they're doing these, when their units are going out there, because as you went up in rank, you got access to better stuff. And so using the player's desire to get more stuff against them, harnessing that for the game really helped.
And we had 2 battle interactives a year, and we tried to do 2 social interactives a year, and both were equally fun, very different animals, but oh my God, they were such a blast. But so in both the social and the and in the battle interactives, there was both an opportunity to basically increase your standing in an organization, as well as both role play with the organization, and there are usually almost consistently special perks for being in a particular organization. So later on in the campaign, the requirements, the entry requirements were high, but you could join, like, the Griffin Guard or the Chosen of Khalees and be like actual royal guard. And then in many cases, like I said, there would be perks, especially in a battle. So, like, it might be like, okay, we know you're going into this. Here are some cool potions, or we're going to lend somebody this artifact, like, for the battle and only for the battle, and somebody gets to use it, which was wild. Or, if you were army at a certain level, maybe you could call in, like, a mortar strike of some sort. Like, I need to call in some fireballs. You've got, like, once per battle, we'll drop a bunch of fireballs on an enemy of your choosing. Or
okay, that's cool.
We'll bring somebody by throw a bunch of heals, extra healing. Like, it's one thing to have a happy stick, but like when there's no break between waves, having somebody walk through and
Wand
be
of
like,
Cure Light Wounds, people.
You know
That's
what?
a happy stick.
Here's a mass heal, boom, once per battle. Like, and when you're like high level play, like that's and and the cool thing was, like, we would even see tables like use those favors to help out other tables. Like, they wouldn't necessarily use it on themselves.
Usually,
You guys were a heroic region, which is the exact opposite of where I was. Bandit Kingdoms was chaotic neutral. You talked about, I mean, and as a team, you guys were a heroic team. You wanted every PC concept that was legal in Living Greyhawk to have a available home to them. In the Bandit Kingdoms, we were like, screw Paladins. Paladins will be from the Shield Lands or somewhere else. We're not going to give them any support. Same thing, Clerics of Paylor, Clerics of Lydia, et cetera, because we were under the thumb of IUs. But it's your campaign was heroic. And this, calling in an airstrike on a neighboring table, that would be an amazing thing to see. I appreciate you telling us that.
So let's jump into the secret orgs for a second, because that was an area where I had a lot of fun. So we had a very close-knit set of volunteers, and the volunteers who ran each secret org were completely secret. The other secret org volunteers didn't know who they were. The players who participated in the orgs didn't know who the folks running them were, and they could only be contacted via email. Like, this was before like group chat was really a big thing. And so with the secret orgs, this is a perfect example of, like, so let's say somebody got into the Midnight Ravens. The Midnight Ravens was a thieves guild, and so they would have their own bulletin board, their own play-by-post area, where only the other thieves, registered thieves, could basically chat. In many cases, they would use code names for themselves, so even they didn't know who the other thieves were. Like maybe like Black Feather, or
we encourage you to make sock puppet.
Mr. Pink. Why do I have to be Mr. Pink? Why can't I be Mr. Purple?
Because
Mr. Purple's on another job. Sorry, I had to.
No. And so they had their opportunity to do role playing there as well as on the main board, and they would orchestrate schemes, and like they would come up with ideas they wanted to either steal from or basically rally behind a particular political power within the region. We had a lot of major decision points throughout the 5-year play, the campaign, where as Triad and authors, we were very comfortable with the story going any which way. We didn't care as long as the players had fun. So like, and it wasn't like black and white, good and bad. It was very much like they had particular policies that certain characters really gravitated towards. And we had a lot of lawful characters going to be way more in support of this versus, other ones. And then there was an ongoing theme of like, how involved should Keoland be in the support and restoration and restructuring of Geoff? So like, it was absolutely, it was fun stuff. But so there were other secret orgs, and we deliberately pitted the secret orgs against one another. So on one end, we had the Midnight Ravens, which is the Thieves Guild. Then we had another secret org, which was the Ever Legati. And the Ever Legati, I think it's like the Vigilant Eyes, and they were the official spies of the Duke. And that was separate from another group, which was the Enosi Thaumaturgos, which was the Gnomish spy organization. And there were a couple other ones. The Griffin Guard and the Chosen of Khalees each had their own basically private ones because they were kind of prestigious, and it was very difficult to get into those. If you were Sewell, you're not getting anything like actually like like if you deliberately chose to make a character against the main theme of the region, you're gonna have fun. We're gonna help you have fun, but like you're gonna have to basically like it made sense in character. Like when we handed out a couple nobilities throughout play, and there we had a group which wasn't a secret org, but we had an org that you could only gain through like exceptional service in like an interactive, and you would become named a noble, like a lesser noble, and have privileges and then access to that group as well. So yeah, there was a lot of we fully supported the rivalry, and they we would also in many cases give them special tasks to achieve prior to an interactive.
Oh, neat.
Hang on a second. Were they secret, so they were given to that player specifically, and the other players in the party didn't know about them, or how would that work?
So if you, let's say you're a member of the Midnight Ravens, you're a member of the Thieves Guild.
Yeah.
Let's say there were 30 active Midnight Raven players in the region. All 30 of those players would be given a secret goal that those 30 would share, but no one else in the region knew about.
Okay. Yep.
And so, go ahead.
No, I was going to say this concept then got expanded in Pathfinder Society, whether they knew it or not, into their faction goals during adventures.
Pretty neat.
In the BK, the adventure would tell the dungeon master, ask everyone if their character belongs to a meta org, and then there might be an NPC from that meta org that pulls them aside and says, hey, during this, I don't want you to rescue the prisoner. I want you to kill the prisoner as BK. So, but doing it during an interactive like that, I'm struggling to remember a time when we did it so adroitly as what you just described. I mean, that's a really neat idea.
And like, they wouldn't necessarily directly conflict with one another, but sometimes they would. So, you know, especially there were a number of instances where they weren't necessarily elections, but it was like, okay, well, one of these three nobles is going to be granted this land, or is going to end up basically taking over this role, this point, place of office or something, or, you know, whether or not this treaty is going to get signed. And so, like, you know, maybe the thieves are like, nah, we're not into that. And the spies are like, we're very supportive of that.
I'd never even heard of secret meta orgs, and I was the meta org guy in the Bandit Kingdoms. This is a brilliant idea. I mean, they're all about the secrets, and we didn't even think of it, so I feel ashamed.
So it's 20 years later, so I'm happy to throw spoilers out there if you guys want them.
Yeah, no, that's very cool.
So,
because let me tell the audience real quick. The Circle gave us rules, and we haven't even looked at the mechanics. But Jay, if you pull up and zoom in on one of the meta orgs, to join a meta org, typically in Living Greyhawk, no matter what region you're in, you had to spend time units. Time units were what limited your play opportunities. There were 52 of them per year. Yes, there's 52 weeks in a year. They always said it was just coincidence or whatever. But anyway, so a meta org might cost you time units, play opportunity to join. You might need to have a base attack bonus of 6 or higher, or X number of ranks in a skill, or to have, I don't know, kissed a succubus and survived, you know, whatever role-playing thing an org might have. So if we look, they should have requirements, and then each would give a corresponding amount of special access from the splat books. And 3.0, they were the brown books. And then 3.5, they were the other, other splat books.
Yeah, here it says an annual TU of 2 years. If you leave the organization before paying 2 years of cost, you must pay the cost the following year, even if you're no longer a member of the group. There you go.
Right. So that's if you left the group, it sounded like.
No, you had to pay 2-year cost no matter what, right? Yeah.
Which one was that?
It says here, leaving an organization. If you join an organization with an annual TU or gold cost, you join the group a minimum of 2 years, no matter what.
Oh, right.
Oh, participation, you have to pay the upkeep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of the orgs, both the standard orgs and the secret orgs, were also opportunities for, I mean, it's just general role play opportunity. And then also players in many occasions initiated basically special missions or play opportunities for themselves. So I distinctly recall there was one instance, maybe year late 3, early 4, where for whatever reason, there was a convoy basically through the main in-character board. There was some decision to basically take either a dowry or some large sum of money or whatever, and they were going to basically bring it to the Grand March. I think it was like, you know, to kind of like continue to retain hold of their city of Hakak or something. And like, it was a very important thing, and a lot of the players disagreed with this and were not excited about this. And like, we had role played because it was a big deal that like some of the Royal Guard would be accompanying it or whatever. Well, anyways, the players who were members of the Midnight Ravens, which is the Thieves Guild, got together, approached their meta org POC, and they said, we want to rob this train. We're going to go rob this convoy. And we're like, what? And they're like, no, really, we want to do this. We're like, okay. Because again, we were, as Triad, we were like, yes, and. So sure enough, we said we'll support no more than 6 players. You guys work it out, do all your prep, tell me how you want it to go down. Got all the notes, set a step aside, went to the other meta org. You guys are the Griffin Guard. Some of you guys are basically escorting this. Like, does anyone want to participate in a special mission? Yes, no. Who wants to participate? And then, sure enough, we basically schedule it, set it aside, and we role play it out. One group of PCs trying to basically rob this convoy, and another set of PCs trying to basically defend the convoy. And the second set of PCs didn't know exactly what was going to happen. And so there were no player deaths.
But player versus player was super limited in Living Greyhawk.
It was very limited, and it required like direct, like triad supervision.
Right.
And,
Because
no killing, I
not
think,
every
was a
player responds appropriately to player versus player when it's, either it's fair or unfair, or it becomes a pissing contest, or whose PC's penis is bigger contest or whatever. So it was usually highly avoided in Living Greyhawk. But real quick, Grand March note. Grand March show will be February 15th for the first time. We're going to have Grand March on. We've got, maybe you guys know these gentlemen, Jeffrey Cars, former Grand March Triad member, and tentatively Joe Jungers, Jungers.
Yep.
Jungers? Okay, I
I'm
wasn't
probably
sure.
mispronouncing it. I'm probably butchering it. I apologize.
Well, he's going to be on the road, and we're going to try and get him to come in, when he's in a hotel room after being on the road all day. So tentatively, but Grand March show next month, people, for the first time. So that should be great. So just wanted to jump in there when you
Right before the
talked
fundraiser.
about.
Right before the fundraiser starts. So a couple days before.
Yeah.
It'd be good.
So the fact that you had players trying to rob the Thieves Guild, it makes perfect sense. We had similar shenanigans
That's
in the
awesome.
DK.
I like that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's
Now,
amazing
I
what
will
players
know-
will do if you just get out of their way.
Yeah.
Everything was fully untiered, and everybody in the region knew it, and they were happy with it. I mean, when you're literally year one, the highest level player was like 4th level, and they're literally attacking hill giants, like a trio of hill giants. You're like, you know what you're getting into, bud.
Right.
That's
Like,
crazy.
I mean, and so
They were supposed to hide during that encounter. It was very telegraphed.
So the
Yeah.
Legacy of Valor event established that, like, so everybody who participated in it knew they were playing 15th level characters, and like most of them died, some of them retired and became NPCs in the region. But like, it set the bar that like the NPCs running the region are 15th level, and if you mess with them, they're going to be 15th level. And so, like, and yet we still had a number of cases where we had PCs who were like, I'm going to pick a fight with this 15th level character. And, I'm sure that everyone here is a DM, and I'm sure you guys all know that, like, if you just put a 15th level stat block on a table, they're going to die because you just action economy, you lose. So, like, we invested the time to make sure that, like, it was a 15th level threat. So, like, when the Ravens and the Thieves decided they were going to assault this Royal Guard, they knew that was probably, there were 15th level NPCs guarding that convoy, and they were like between 9th and 12th level, and they're like, we're going to do it anyway because bragging rights and the challenge, and they wanted to do it, and they had a great time. They had a blast.
Wow. Cool.
So the meta orgs, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, this is the wonder of the meta org is we just set up the framework and put up,
Whoops.
built the
I had the wrong
sandbox.
freaking button.
Oh, you hit the tip.
Yeah,
Oh, that's the greatest video. You always miss.
Tim gets kickbacks from that.
Yes.
So with
Sorry,
this-
Mark.
Meta org
You
is
don't
you
get
just
the
set
joke
the
because you haven't
sandbox,
seen that
players
video.
build the castles.
So one of the things that
It
we
filled
also
it in,
did
which is great. Yeah.
when we established the secret orgs, so when I joined in year 2, Eric and Brad had basically written the main arc of this amazing story. It was well in flight. It was well established. And I was like, okay, Eric, how can I help? How can I contribute? How can I enrich without messing up what there is in place? And so we kind of sorted through some things. He's like, all right, here's like, and we had this major in-character play-by-post thing going. And he's like, all right, I'm going to basically focus on these NPCs and this parts of the story. And like, here are some ones that, like, I think you have complete flexibility. We basically went back and forth. We negotiated, we horse traded. And basically some of the stuff that I got my hands on, one was the royal assassin, Gallimar Withington, who was a a lot of fun to basically play with. He, Rodri of Lentriv, who was basically the head of the Griffin Guard. So I was able to basically work with that org. And then Colin Apfagan, who was the Chancellor. So, and Eric and I basically, collaborated on all this stuff. So like, he picked my brain, I picked his brain. It was still a team effort across the board.
Sure.
So it came out. So originally the Midnight Ravens were in fact founded by Gallimar Withington, who was the royal assassin. And so it started off as this is a controlled known entity. And then like, if I need to tap these guys to, support from a political perspective or, bring information to me, it filters up and I can, act upon it. And then eventually he delegated that off. On the flip side, you had the Ever Legati. And so the Ever Legati and the Midnight Ravens were constantly competing. That was probably the biggest secret rivalry we had in the region. And one was basically the Patriot information gatherers, and the other was the like chaotic neutral, we do our own thing information gatherers, and they frequently basically competed against a lot of the goals. Well, we basically close held this to the end, and I think a lot of players never ended up getting these spoilers, but the Ever Legati were run by Colin Apfagan, who was the Chancellor, and Colin was actually the apprentice of Withington. So they were actually playing both sides of the rivalry against one another, competing, and then yet all the information basically came back to the Duke, and they were able to basically do what they needed to with that.
Game of Thrones, eat your heart out.
So we've already gotten to 9 o'clock.
Thing, by the way.
That
was a Dave and Shalom thing. They're super underhanded, and they do great at work like that. But I'm sorry, Casey, you were saying?
No, it's great.
I would say I might suggest, because of time considerations, because we could go all night, we should pick some of these PDF books and just kind of go through the orgs real quick. What were they about?
All open, so you guys pick.
Yeah, who were they for? Just real quick stuff. And what I'm particularly interested in is when you took things from canon and ran with it as well. That's always good to hear. So that way Anna and Mike might be able to tie it into canon stuff as well. So, I mean, what part 6, does that mean that was the 6th book of meta orgs?
Correct. Yeah. And we'll
start with part 1, Jay.
I don't have one. I only have 3. I only have 3 through 10. You didn't give me 1 and 2.
Oh.
I'm going to throw this out there. So when I started in play in 2001 as a player, that was my first exposure to Greyhawk. I was a relative D&D noob. I had played 2nd edition. I didn't know any of the lore, so like, I was heavily involved in a lot of the meta org. So very little of that is canon, and if it is, it's by accident or by the volunteers. I can't take credit for for most of that. So
very neat to know.
I converted them all to PDF, and I can't. If you give me Word docs,
well, I can go through it real quick. So the first part, looking through it, is basically was the overview. It was telling you what was in each of the other parts, and also where you could get the various items and spells and prestige classes. So, for example, we had it's just basically lists of like, here's all the prestige classes.
If you wanted to be a dragon disciple, go join this org?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's basically an index. And then it's also how you use favors in Geoff, because we relied heavily on favors.
Oh my God, they were such a good mechanic.
It's kind of like social currency.
Oh, absolutely.
To get something done, you better have a favor. How do you get favors? You play the mods.
We were very constrained as well by being able to hand out extra money or extra gear, because it's league play, right? We have to basically maintain a certain level of balance, but we wanted to be able to reward players. And so to Eric's point, we'd hand out favors based on they have to earn them. And then, but we also, because we were very supportive of player agency, like we would absolutely let people use their favor to do crazy stuff in the region. If someone had like an A rank favor and they're like, I want to meet with the Duke and I want to basically propose a crazy idea, like, okay,
favor, please.
We'll do it. Absolutely. If you want to spend that favor, if you earned it yourself, we will support your crazy idea.
And the bigger the ask, the more favors you needed.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to become a peer of the realm, that was a lot of favors.
So Jay, chapter 2, is that the first one, the lowest one you have there?
Second groups is part 3. I don't have
Part 2 is the Army of Liberation.
I don't have any of that.
And that is all military.
All right.
And it discusses all the ranks and which groups you can join. And the big one was you basically started by joining just the general Army of Liberation. And then you could, from there, leap off basically into prestige groups, prestige meta orgs, if you were a member of good standing of the Army of Liberation.
And just real quick, I always thought 3rd edition in Living Greyhawk I thought prestige groups should have been tied to specific meta orgs, both in the game itself, because they do hint at that in early 3.0.
Classes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, prestige classes. In early 3.0 stuff, the prestige classes seem to be linked to specific organizations, and then that kind of broadened to races and cultures, and then it just kind of became, oh, you've met a dragon, you want to do something, and then they kind of veered away from that. Depends on the splat book and which siege class. But in Living Greyhawk, we had to open up that access. So you might have a Fate Spinner in the Bandit Kingdoms who's completely unrelated to a Fate Spinner in Geoff. They just learned it different ways. It's just a weird aspect of the game.
I don't want to go off on a big tangent here, but Big Mac's asking why you had 2 separate Triad websites.
For Geoff?
Yes.
We definitely started with one website once upon a time. Like when I started, I mean, I absolutely adored the puzzle that was Geoff, and there were like little hints about the NPCs, and I'm not looking at the Wayback Machine right now, but there were like 20, 25 NPCs. You're like, and also, if I recall correctly, like very early, even in year 1, we started some big mysteries of like the Duke has fallen into like a deep sleep or whatever, and like you're like, man, what's going on? Like who's who and what's what, and like, you already basically hear whisperings of like secret orgs and things going on and like secret missions and stuff. You're like, I gotta know all the things. And so at some point, I guess this may not be answering the right question, but I think there was a bigger, broader website that came forward with like more stuff, but I don't know.
I thought we just had the one.
Yeah, well,
it's a moot point. The other one was a fan.
It could have been a fan content one. There you go.
Okay. We had a lot of regular players,
and people may have been just.
Do you remember what we had? Was it livinggeoff.com?
That's one of the ones he linked is livinggeoff.com, and the other one was GYRUFF.org.
That one is a fan.
It's a fan. Okay, good.
There was someone who, because Geoff was because we were leaning heavily into Lan culture, so we were leaning heavy into that.
Linguistically, it was very Welsh based or oriented.
All right. Well, I start off with part 3 on secular groups here.
Yeah, can we run through these real quick for the audience?
So, these are, I guess, in no particular order. The Chosen of Khalees. So Khalees was the Kyoish princess, and she, it was very prestigious. This is this is like Royal Guard. And so, like, you had to earn specific favor with the princess in order to join this organization. And once you did, it was basically like, you're card-carrying FBI. Like, you're like, this is my jurisdiction. I'm going where I want to go. Like,
lots of influence and power. Is she a canon Keeland NPC, or did you coordinate with Sean Merwin and Judy or whoever in the Kyoish triad, or?
Sam Weiss, mostly.
Sam. Oh, Sam's been very active on the Discords in recent days.
He was fantastic. We came to him, it's like, so we got a plan. You have a princess just laying around that we could use?
I think he's got some various feelings about how Wizards of the Coast treated Living Greyhawk, as maybe meant he doesn't want to come onto the show, but we'll continue to work on that.
He had so many ideas.
Well, he was very
And
prolific on
it was
Cannon
just
Fire
amazing
too.
to work with him.
That was just kind of I'm always interested in inter-regional cooperation, Mark. That's why I ask.
Well, for that one, the Kaosh Triad was trying hard to start their Court of the Land up again because they wanted to use it as a launching point for meta-regional adventures.
The
Because
Sheldamar region meta regional adventures.
right, we were up to level 12th level, is that right?
Yeah.
So 12th level, it was a regional adventure, and then the Sheldamar meta regional adventures could go all the way up to 18. But they wanted to use the Court of the Land for the springboard for those, and we were like, well, Geoff in theory was part of the Court of the Land. It's just that we kind of drifted away, but now we're in dire need, so you kind of got us over a barrel. And maybe how else do nobility make treaties but with a marriage? And that's how police came about.
It was really interesting too, because from a player dynamic, one of the biggest issues that would split player character right down the middle was like those who are supportive of Keoland and Keoish interaction and support, and those who are like, nah, you guys are going to try and take all of our country as soon as we get the giants out. And so like, man, we had debates, arguments, like in character, just shy of fights all day, every day. And it was glorious. But to your point, like this was a very prestigious org, except you smelled like Keoland. So like some of the players would be like, I don't care how much prestige you have, you're not welcome here.
I got a dumb question. How many
Please.
Organizations did what was the most someone belonged to? How many meta orgs?
It wasn't that many. It would have.
A
Go
player
ahead.
can only be part of one, right?
I think they could have done, if they had the time units and they weren't explicitly like preventing one another, you could have been more than one. So like you could have been like,
we TU'd them.
Hello, my little fairy.
Like if you want to be part of the Khalees,
Here's my little fairy.
Hi.
hello,
Yes.
it was 8 times. You only had 52 a year.
Right.
And to play a regional adventure was 1 time unit. To play out of region was 2 time units because you traveled, which was to encourage you to play in your home region. So if you are chosen to Khalees, that is 8 time units right there. Not playing anything, just dumped into a meta org, so subtract 8. Then if you became that peer of the realm, someone also mentioned, that would be another 6 time units. So that's another, you're up to 14. Then if you join the army, that was 4 time units for the base group.
And then you join the church.
And then you join a church. And so that was another 4 time units. So
and maybe you want to be a spy. You want to basically like file like spy reports. Like you're like, there goes 30 of my 52 time units or something.
So
And
I'm
it also
playing 3
served as
times a year, but I'm part of everything.
But it also served as a great mechanic to try and slow down the very fast leveling that occurred because players or characters had so many play opportunities. 52 time units. Regional adventures cost 1. Meta regional adventures local to you cost 1. Course costs 2. Interactives cost 1, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, to your point, you had players who would literally build out these calendars like, this is my main character. I've got 20 units basically for the Peer of the Realm. Here are my 4 organizations. That's this many time units. And I want to participate in the 4 interactives of the year. And I need this many time units. So I can participate in 3 adventures this year and all the interactives. And that's my main character.
Wow. And that character would only gain 1 level, 2 levels a year.
But they got to play in everything story and they were happy.
Right. But then they could have another character. That's the thing. Living Greyhawks had no limit to the number of characters you create, just like Pathfinder Society. And you could create characters for other regions. You could play, like, you could create a Keelan character because, hey, I'm traveling to New York all the time and I'm getting to play
I had
with
a
those
Keelan
guys.
character because I couldn't play in Geoff.
Right. I had a yeomanry character because I couldn't play in the Bandit Kingdoms. But you could have a whole stable of characters, and some people wanted to focus on one main character and get it as high a level as quickly as possible because that's what really intrigued them about the game, is just being a munchkin. You know, I'm not using that pejoratively. You know, it's role playing and role playing. There's 2 types of, you know,
and we would see that often too.
On.
You'd have folks who are power gaming, which that's fine, and they would get their character real close to high level, and they're like, okay, I'm going to save this much experience because I want to be able to participate in these interactives for the next 2 years. And they would only take that high level character out for the interactives, and they wouldn't play anything else with that character.
There's also the trick is that they would cache spells that had XP costs to bring down their,
That's true.
But let's not get into the perfect cookie wish debacle. That just always gets me angry. But Indifference.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So there was a character who was at 6. All right, Living Greyhawk characters retired originally. Never. John Doss said they had a 20th level character in Canada. I've never heard of anyone else managing to do that before the character level limit for 17th level or 18th level. I think it was 18th level went into place. At Gen Con, year 4 or 5 or 6, some wizard of 17th level kept casting the wish spell anytime he got close to 18th level because it cost 25,000 experience points. And he wished for the world's most perfect chocolate chip cookie during one of these castings during a Gen Con special event. And the circle members heard about this and said, no, that's utterly ridiculous. You are intentionally avoiding retirement. Your character is now mandatorily retired. And then they lowered the retirement level in Living Greyhawk from 18th level to 16th level because high level game in 3.x was just insane.
Painful.
You know, it's rocket tag and time stopped spells and, you know, summoning monsters for 3 hours. It just became unmanageable.
When they limited us to 12th level, I breathed a sigh of relief.
Yeah, that they
I
kept
was
that
so
for
happy.
Pathfinder organized play to 12th level.
Yeah.
I will note there were some, you know, there was some grumbling because we had initially said we were going to go to 20. And so players who had started year 1 who were on that trajectory, you know, that was when we very quickly saw like a lot of the higher level characters like going back in the binder and like, you know, from a story perspective, yeah, my character's high level, but like the story matters to me. So I'm going to put them in the parking lot and then only bring them out on special story occasions.
Real quick before I relay one of Indicarous's John's questions for you pertaining to meta orgs, if you have a really burning desire to learn more about how Living Greyhawk and time units work, you can read about it in my book.
Oh, awesome.
Only $8.95 on Amazon.
I bought your book on Amazon. I actually have that.
Thank you, Mark.
I need to buy that.
Thank you for writing it. It was good.
Well, I appreciate that. I wish I could win the lottery and I would then hire people to do their own books for their regions while I work on my next book project, which is going to be an overarching history of Living Greyhawk. Not the adventures, but how it came to be, yada, yada, yada. But
that would be awesome. Yeah,
that's in the future. So Indicarus had a great question for you. He is currently playing a druid from Geoff in his Friday night game. Did you have any meta orgs that are appropriate for druids? The Old Faith, I know, was really big for you guys, so take it from there.
The Old Faith. Go ahead.
I'm under Sacred. I mean, there's an Obadiah in here. Is there other beyond that?
So I may not have given you all the books, so that could be on me. There definitely was a major Old Faith meta org. There were a couple of also like breakout like specific churches. So if you wanted to be a church, basically a lay member or a priest of like Paylor, Obed High, you know, Alona, Nerul. I don't think we actually supported Nerul as a dedicated church. You could, but then also like
Could not.
multi-classing was a very prevalent thing in 3.5, much more so than 4 or 5 or even Pathfinder. So I mean, like there was also some very Old Faith heavy orgs such as the Prodithi, which were the old lore bards, if I recall correctly. I think that was even in the book we were just looking at.
Yep. So we did have the big difference is if you're a druid in Geoff, we kind of steered you towards Old Faith, which was the druidic group that we were dealing with as the Flanae. If you were a cleric that worshipped one of the gods of the Old Faith, then you went into their specific churches. So we had a meta org for the Church of Biori, the Church of Elona, the Church of Obed High.
Barai. Barai as well, right?
We never went. She kind of got grouped under Biori.
Oh, okay.
We didn't break her out because she wasn't powerful enough to have her own following.
But now you're bringing up a very interesting second edition dynamic in that you could have clerics of nature gods and druids of the nature gods, and they would be two separate organizations and entities and structures.
Yes.
And that carried over into 3rd edition and Living Greyhawk thinking.
But they would still likely be very politically aligned.
Yep. The big difference with the Old Faith is that they were a fusion of 5 different faiths all together to essentially create the celestial wheel of the seasons, with Alona being spring, Obadhai being summer, Biori being autumn, and Nerul being winter, with Pelor as the sun wheel standing in the middle. So they viewed all 5 of those gods being the creator of the circle, of the eternal circle that is always going through life. And their interest was to maintain the balance between those different forces of nature.
And it's important to note that the Old Faith faction in the region was arguably as potent and powerful as the Duke himself. It was a major political thing. If the Old Faith said, we're going to do this, or we don't support that, like,
right.
If the Old Faith didn't support you, it probably wasn't happening.
I mean, they should be. Look at the church in our own world and various periods of European and whatnot history. Mike, this is probably a topic that'll be something, more canonical. What they just described for the Old Faith really makes me think of also the Iridian seasonal elemental god, and maybe that they would be in opposition.
What, Telcher?
Well, right. Who the god of the wind, the god of the harvest, all the related siblings, right? The Iridian.
I like the flame wheel there. That's something I never heard described.
Yeah.
So this
Farmers
is
of the Old Faith would say they're the same thing. It doesn't matter what label you put on the season. So the Iridian gods are the same as the Flanae gods. And it's just different ways of looking at it.
So speaking of player agency, one of the things that happened very early in year 1, spearheaded by one of the more power gaming groups in the region, there was a significant presence in basically a priest and the church of Ouijas, Iridian, which was very, very non-Old Faith. And like, if it weren't for player agency, like, there's no way that would have basically flown in the region. And yet, like, they continued to, like, the players invested piles and piles of gold, piles of favors, piles of time units to continue to literally, like, have this church of Ouijas and this presence of Ouijas stick out like a sore thumb, just spiting Old Faith. Like, the entire campaign and like every battle or whatever, they're like, screw you, Old Faith, we're still here. And like, we, of course, everything they want to do, we're like, oh, you can buy land. Oh, Ouijas, this is going to cost you double. It's like, oh, you want to basically have participate in the parade? Fine, cost you double. It's like,
wow.
Want to buy some armor, want to buy some munitions, going to cost you double. They're like, okay, we're going to do it, but we're still here. You can't. So
Death, law, and magic. That was just a hard sell for the Geary. They were like,
chuckled every time they did it.
Mark, one of the amazing things Jay was able to do was develop a relationship with Lynn Lakofka, before he passed a couple years ago. And Lynn told us all that it's supposed to be Ouija, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Ouija.
Yeah,
the
this whole
Ouija
time,
board,
all of
but,
us, everyone has been saying Ouijas
Yeah.
or Ouija, and Lynn was like, "No, it's Ouija, like the Ouija board."
Well,
Yep.
I screwed that
And we
up.
were all like,
for
"Oh,
20 years.
so obvious."
Yeah,
Just
but
a
I
little
kind of
tidbit.
like Ouija's better. I'm so used to it than Ouija.
Yeah, I am now too, but
was I on that show with you guys? Because that sounds weird. Because I thought he said Ouija.
I could have sworn he said Ouija.
It was the Ouija board. It came from
Yeah.
the idea came from
that
the
was
Ouija
early
board.
on
He
in
said
the
that.
show. We were surprised. One of the first
Yep.
ones he ever
I
saw on
know.
Legend.
Yeah.
And then that's when he sold this, tried to sell us on the idea of the Aquaman too. So yeah,
Yes.
So anyway, just a little
yeah.
segue there. All right. So
Anecdotes. Yep.
what other meta orgs can we fly through here real quick that maybe people can use in their campaigns set in
we
the
threw
area?
in monks. There is the Guardians of the Old Faith became because we had to put monks somewhere because people kept wanting to play monks.
I don't have that one either.
And that kind of
What? Yeah,
it's
we only
in,
got 8 of them.
I don't have that.
I have it under
We might have to do a
Part
second
four,
show because
Wait,
we barely actually
part
talked.
4 sacred?
about the
Yeah.
specific
Oh,
meta
maybe
org,
is it here in Pub
It's
46?
down,
which would be
under-
fine
under
with
Old
me.
Faith, under the Old Faith itself.
Oh, wait a minute.
So there's Old Faith.
So
and
you
then-
had monks who are lawful neutral.
Yeah,
Okay.
Oh,
I
there it
they
mean,
is.
were dedicated to the
Old
defense
Faith.
of
All right,
the
so
old,
page 49. All right.
of the Druids, and that kind of
right,
acted
so it is
as
here. I
their
apologize.
bodyguards.
Yet, from a faction perspective, these lawful neutral monks were very, very much on one end of the spectrum. And we haven't begun to even talk about the Knights of the Watch or the Knights of the Dispatch, who are completely other end of the political spectrum as well.
sure.
Mhm.
Meta-org, where Valjex stands for the organizations and factions within each Living Greyhawk campaign setting, and basically these are all, think of them as whatever organization you have in your game. You know, it could be an adventuring group, it could be a religious group, it could be a evil group, it could be the Seekers, it could be whatever it is. That's
In the Gord the Rogue novels, you have the Beggars Union, right? The
Beggars
Beggars
Guild,
Guild,
the Beggars
the
Guild. That would
Thieves
be-
Guild.
that'd be
Those are
one.
all meta orgs.
they'd all be meta-orgs, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So
But
So
some
here-
of these were made by us. A lot of them, were created by the players pushing for it. If one player really wanted to have a meta org, they could probably get one made. If they did all the work for us and say, okay, here's the form, fill it out.
Well, and
Yes.
and so if it was in character, it's like, okay, we need to invest this much gold, and a favor. Let's get a plot of land. Let's get a chapter house. And then buy the leadership feat if you need some followers. And
Mm.
Turned
know,
into a
I think
great
there was-
voltsync,
Hi,
by the
dead
way.
speaker. Druids wrecked my first church with termites.
he's absolutely right. I remember that was all Eric, and I support that.
That is awesome.
Actually, was that a player or was that Triad?
I don't remember.
I mean, it could have been
Yeah.
either at that point.
While we're still talking about the old faith, I do want to bring up one of my pet peeves that I've brought up on this show before, and that is Living Greyhawk was not set up to have inter-regional or inter-meta regional or campaign-wide meta orgs. And in my opinion, the Church of Palor, the Old Faith, the really big religious organizations should have come down from the
Yeah.
Circle of Six and been, okay, there's some regional variances here and there, but a Church of Palor
Mhm.
in, I don't know, the Duchy of Ernst and a Church of Palor, in Niron should look pretty similar. And we didn't have that level of coordination in the campaign, but we did have some interregional meta orgs. Like the BK, we had one or two that were the same as Divers. And we did that on purpose because our flavors meshed well together.
Yeah, shitty.
Chaotic
Well,
neutral.
I mean,
Yeah,
I think one of
exactly.
the recurring themes here for Geoff was that,
Bad
like,
boys.
we barely had one road. For a long time, we didn't have a city, and then we got one city, and then we almost lost the city from
Yeah.
politics, and we almost lost the city from giants. So, like, in the grand scheme of things, there definitely should have been some amount of greater consistency. I agree, between the religious orgs and even the secular orgs, but like
We were all dealing with volunteers.
but like also, the message wasn't getting out. Like, folks weren't going on Facebook to basically share their Palorite, prayers in the morning, or YouTubing them. So
Well, yeah, but like I created a Church of Swords Kellenin Yahoo group, and those of us who were really hardcore into playing Kellenites throughout Living Greyhawk at that time all kind of just found each other. I was pretty vocal on the main Living Greyhawk Yahoo group, I guess, or when I went to conventions or whatever. And that had actually no bearing on the campaign. Nothing we said there was watched by any Triad members. It wasn't official. We would just kind of be like, oh, what are you doing in your region to promote Kellenin? That kind of stuff.
So, I mean, and speaking of rivalry too, we didn't just have rivalry between the meta orgs and rivalry between the adventuring companies. Like, especially, I mean, our interactives in many cases fueled a lot of the opportunities for bragging rights. And when we had folks come in from other regions, like we had folks flying the Kiosh banner, and flying the Grand March banner, and like they're like, we're gonna get this many kills, and we're gonna look for the glory of the Grand March. And then all the gear, you're like, rabble, Grand March, and folks from the yeomanry, and like, it was a good time. I mean, it was all about the bragging rights and the rivalries.
All right, so I'm in this section. What's Ken Trevi? The groups in this section are various groups that have formed over time in different parts of Geoff. Why don't we go over what this is? Because I don't. These all names are all what, Welsh?
Welsh-ish.
Eric, this is your jam. Unless you want me to
Yeah,
talk
those
to it.
are our provinces. And so each one of those is a different province within Geoff, and we went with various Welsh names for them.
Okay.
With simplified Welsh, because I was not confident that players would be able to do full Welsh.
It's
So
kind
this
of
is
not
50%
obvious that they're simplified, but we appreciate the effort.
So a meta org is if you could join the meta org if you live there. Is that it? Like
some of them. Is this for the folk of Geoff?
Well, I'm just in here
for some of the
simple-
Cantrevi, though, they were in many cases giant occupied. So you could have basically, when you created your character, they could have been, I am displaced from this region. So, for example, if you wanted to play, a hill folk dwarf or a gnome from the hills, and the hills are the barrier peaks, and that is deep in giant territory, like you're probably not raising sheep over there right now, So,
which one are you in, Jay?
I'm in part 5.
Part 5.
Yeah, because I was just curious because it looks like you have all these different regions here, and it says you have persons of note, and you have organizations.
Oh,
it says 2-time units per year.
I think you are looking at. No, I think this is the first 5-year.
Geoff.
Yeah, well, there's a first 5-year campaign and a second 5-year campaign, and so in many cases, a lot of the NPCs changed.
Okay.
Some of the NPCs didn't make it through the first 5 years.
That's January. That's 2006.
Okay.
Yeah, so you've got basically
this is post me. They added this,
and so an important note in the same way we talked about the Legacy of Valor, right? So the premise for Legacy of Valor was these retiring or basically unfortunate deceased NPCs or whatever became part of the backdrop of the story for the first 5-year campaign. And we had kind of talked about from the beginning of the 5-year campaign, when we wrapped up, your characters, assuming you chose to retire them and not want to play them into like Uber Munchkin land, like would become a part of the story for the next 5-year campaign. And so you'll see in a couple of these cases, there are some PCs in here, like retired PCs. Like Reinhold was in here, I think. I saw you scroll by quickly.
Yeah, because there's so much. I mean, there's
living campaign. Yeah,
there's so much.
Using the retired PCs is a classic Greyhawk tradition.
Yep. Isn't that half of Temple of Elemental Evil was populated by all the PCs Gex ran through his playtest?
Probably.
I know.
So it also gives very powerful characters to give to the Triad in order to stop shenanigans for the next wave of players coming.
Or start shenanigans.
Something Eric and Mark have touched on is this 5-year plot arc. At the beginning of the campaign, the Triads were told plan for a 5-year arc. And then when year 5 was wrapping up, the Triads were told plan for a 3-year arc. And that was the first indication that the campaign would be ending in 2008 when it was officially announced in 2007. But I think that's when a lot of people figured out, the writing is on the wall. Rumors of 4th edition probably started to be heard at that time. And the question of, will Living Greyhawk continue on to the next edition just got cricket from the RPGA and Wizards of the Coast. And now we know why. They went on to do Living Forgotten Realms during the 4th edition ages.
All right, so
I have another secret org story.
Please.
So we had talked. So I spent a lot of time with the secret orgs, a lot of time on those boards, working with the Midnight Ravens and the Everlegati. Well, we were asked when there were folks who are starting off doing the Sheldamar regional, like the meta regional stories, let's come up with some stories for like the higher level play of AC cross regional. And so in the spirit of yes, and I basically took one of like Eric's and Brad's like finest stories, the Return of the Grand Duke story, and I played the game of yes and. or what and. So for those of you guys who are familiar with that story, actually, I'm going to let Eric basically provide the quick synopsis for Return of the Grand Duke, if you recall.
Could you take the lead on this one?
All right, that's fine. So supposedly the Duke at the end of the Legacy of Valor, whatever, was either was put into a coma or a deep sleep and would not rise, or was, he was just mortally wounded, and everyone's like, when will the Duke ever return to us, whatever. And story goes through play, and then towards the tail end of the campaign, basically, when the Duke finally comes back from his slumber, or from his mortally wounded, he basically rises, and everyone's like, this shouldn't be possible. How did this happen to be? And they're like, well, something, the Duke's personal assassin, Withington, basically used the services of a mind flayer to help restore the mind of the Duke, and there was discussion of a clone to basically bring the Duke back into being. And it's been a hot minute, so I'm trying to basically remember all the details. But anyways, so from an authorship perspective, we asked the question, well, how do you go out and solicit the services of a mind flayer? How is that even a thing? And so we kind of established that, well, there is an organization in the Underdark comprised of mind flayers and Durgar, and we basically named this organization the Coven. And so this story arc started to branch out, and the first module in this meta-regional storyline was Check the Fine Print. And it was basically the premise here was, when you enter into an agreement with the Mind Flayer Durgar organization to basically either create a clone or to basically restore the mind of a Duke, what exactly does that entail? Are there lasting favors? Is there, et cetera, et cetera. And so the Coven came a calling. And so we started to slip into interactives and modules and things, little bits and pieces, hints that this was going to come to a head. And the Ravens, who had been established by Withington, and were basically being led by, his number two on that side, and then Colwyn basically running the Ever Legati, were starting to basically pick up little bits and pieces, and this eventually came to a head in this meta-regional adventure, basically Check the Fine Print, where basically the Coven came to town, and they're like, we're here for and there were 3 adventures, and I can't remember. I think one was basically first one was Check the Fine Print. I think the second one was settling debts or whatever, and then the third one was paid in full or whatever. And the last one was an actual interactive. It was a battle interactive. It was a siege in the Underdark against the Coven, and it was absolutely led by the members of the Ever Legati and the members of the Midnight Raven leading this attack against this Underdark stronghold.
Love it. Mark, let me steal some ideas from you. First of all, the fact that mind flayers should be therapists. They're not evil brain eaters. They could make a killing being the therapists and analysts.
Yeah.
Helping you get through your past traumas and things like that. Someone write that down. That's a brilliant idea.
Oh my heavens.
We have a Sam Weiss sighting in the chat, by the way.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
I kind of poked him. I said we were talking about him, and he said, "Oh, tell the guys hi." And I was like, "No, you can tell them yourself." So
well,
I'm glad Sam joined
his
us.
Twitch account is 5 minutes old, so.
Sam, enter the drawing.
Awesome.
For new people, the drawing is exclamation drawing.
But you can't win unless you're a follower. That's a little secret.
Well, hit the follow button.
Yeah, you gotta hit the follow. And it won't come up because all my alerts are
Thanks,
broken today. So yeah, it won't even show. But there you go. So thanks, Sam, for the follow. Yeah.
So Sam was a Keelan Triad member, right? Very active on Cannon Fire, and he did a lot of stuff with you guys. Sounds very cooperative stuff. So maybe we could have Sam on a show in the future with you guys, and we can maybe get Sean Merwin back on and Judy.
That would be fabulous.
If Sean has any time.
Well, I mean,
because
we can try.
He's still doing stuff, right? He's not.
Oh,
Well,
he's
let's get
very
Tails. Yeah,
active.
he's not doing 5e stuff, right? So
Oh well, he's active with the Ghostfire, and
I'm just
he's
saying
part of 2 podcasts.
wasn't he teaching a class on how to write RPGs as
Oh
well
yeah,
at a university?
I think he's crazy active. So but he's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
So yeah.
Now that segues into a future show I want to do about living Greyhawk alumni who have worked in professional game publishing, but that's a different topic.
Or how to be a, how to be a, what do you call it? How to flay yourself getting into that industry.
Freelancer.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I don't know. It's rough. It's got to be. It's tough. I don't envy you guys and gals at all, but it's so wonderful that you love doing it. Absolutely. So let's actually talk about. I just brought up one of the demi-human ones. We got the elves. Look at this. There's a lot. I mean, wow. There's a lot of stuff in here.
We spent a lot of time on the elves. I was I was an elf player before I became triad, and I have a very close love for the elves. And we had a lot of inspiration and a lot of volunteers who contributed there. So,
and the names are cool. Navin Dualesti.
Yep, those were the. So, again, definitely inspired by my personal own selfish motivations here. I played an elven cleric of Corlin, so like Corlin was my jam. So it made sense that like we should have cool elven knights and cool elven priests and like
very high fantasy, say, compared to some of the other regions. And I think that's true in canon to some extent, from what I understand of the regional canon of Geoff. I will often complain on these shows about the Sheldamar Valley access given on the ARs. There was a much freer flow of magic items and favors that did magical stuff for people. But you guys had this big high fantasy campaign where you were fighting CR 20 giants and stuff like that at 8th level, it sounds like.
We did a really good job of draining those favors and that gear and those interactives, though. Like, people will be like, I saved up all this money, and they're like, and then I bought 20,000 gold pieces worth of wands and potions for this battle. And it's all gone, and they still had 2 PCs out of 6 die. So like,
and Eric's talked about, I think, a giant that cast Mordenkainen's Disjunction during an interactive.
Oh,
that was a thing.
That's a 9th level spell, and that is, so you had to be, oh my god.
Yeah. The cheese in 3rd edition was that you could give giants spellcaster levels 2 levels per 1 increase in challenge rating. So
that
a frost giant that was CR8 or
not always agree
or whatever.
Wow.
Yes.
Right.
So we each had our own particular styles and preferences, and Eric was very impressive with all the caster giants. My go-to was the monks. We had cloud giant monks. And
I thought it was the stone giant monks that I heard about.
We had some of each. It was the stone giants were a little bit more peaceful. We actually we had a couple of special missions where PCs made, I think, peaceful contact with some stone giants at some point.
Yeah,
well, that's
stone giants just like to build in our game or in Geoff.
I have no problem with given humanoids, demi-human, monsters or whatever classes. I mean, they should be nasty.
Oh, quick note on the screen here, you've got Shiver McClelland. That was sure enough. There's a retired PC.
Shiver McClelland.
And I'm trying to remember the name of that adventuring company. People in the chat, help me out. What was the name of that adventuring company? That included the character who was crazy enough to try and like steal the baby from the Duke or something. We put him in a block of stone.
Oh my gosh.
It was a good time.
Crazy.
If we had a Lisa Clary here,
real quick.
I'm so impressed with the level of detail that came out over 8 years. It's just amazing.
I mean, this is a lot. I as the BK guy who took over MetaOrgs, we had one nice book with like 20-something MetaOrgs in it, and the MetaOrgs had tiers and all. But you guys went kind of bonkers with the customer service.
Yeah,
how much
that's
players.
That's 4 retired PCs right there. If you scroll back up, we just hit.
Yeah, discussed in here. There's 4. These are all PCs, right? Aramel Gellin, Darren Shadow Dancer.
Yeah.
I don't even want to pronounce that. Siobhan. I guess it's I don't know. Whatever. Oh my gosh. So, but neat. That's really amazing.
Koi
Normally you don't s-
Nina McClellan. That was Elisa Clary's retired character.
Normally you don't see. I mean, this is stuff that happens over decades, not in 8 years.
Right.
This kind of detail, because you got generational stuff that appears here. So, and
we had a lot of amazing volunteers. I cannot stress that enough.
Okay, that's great.
Unpaid labor for the RPGA until you became a circle member.
It was a labor of love. Everybody had a good time, and it's lasting.
Yeah,
that's what's so amazing about it. So then, what is this? Clear Sky Organizations. It says although half orcs in the Clear Sky.
Eric, you want to lead this one?
Sure. So, Clear Sky was the half-orc camp in Geoff. And we had a lot of players that really wanted to play half-orcs. And even though we're still like, we were, if I had to go back and redo it, I probably would do it differently now. But back then we were going from Greyhawk lore that half-orcs were kind of looked suspiciously on. They're not entirely sure which side they're going to fight on. So the Clear Sky was a place where they could live in peace.
I mean, and it made sense too from a story perspective. I mean, you literally had an army of giants and orcs rampage through and occupy an entire nation. There are gonna be some half orcs.
So is this on Anna's map, Clear Sky?
I'm not sure. Hang on a second here.
Where should it be on this map?
It rings a little
just outside of Hawkok, I believe.
Yeah, just northeast of Hawkok, near the real stream, south of the dim forest border.
So right about here?
No, I don't think I have it.
Right about here?
No, it's outside of the forest.
So right near Hawkok, right here?
Yeah.
All right.
It was like half day's walk outside.
So there. All right. Well, there's something that needs to be added.
Mm-hmm.
All right. There we go.
Now, whether or not it's still there is
that's okay. It still can be
noted. Because it was a temporary thing.
Oh,
yeah. Okay.
I want to say in the 6 through 8 campaign, and this is more of a Jose question. I think it moved to the region. Teos's character became a Luir, basically a Cantrevi governor, and I think they moved there, but I could be mistaken.
Okay. Must be a half orc. Must be non-elite and evil, though.
There you go. A semi-mobile village about 12 miles from Aberglane.
Okay. But it's all right. Let's see. Where's that?
That would have been down in the.
Where's Aberlane? I'm sorry, I don't know it too well. The towns.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute.
Is that here? Was that down in? That was one of the new areas. Well, we did down in the.
Here's Aberlane. Here it is.
Yeah, when they retook the territory from the giants, they were able to basically appoint a bunch of new Luir and retiring war heroes, retiring PCs. I mean, made sense. You know, you give them land, and then they're already going to invest their own personal wealth to protect that land. Yeah, it's good gig for the Duke.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so he brought him down there. Excellent. I forget the reason why we got that.
Elder of Clear Sky.
I'm still looking for Clear Sky.
There was some
rings the bells. Oh yeah, I found it. It's on the map. Clear Sky. It's one word.
Where is
it's it? Go down a little bit west and no, up north. Zoom in.
I also want to take a brief moment to also speak to the
now
incredible.
You go a bit south.
I want to speak to the incredible contributions from Jim Galani. Jim Galani probably played the most
west of Gorna.
The most prominent half orc.
West of Gorna. There you go.
A lot of the in-character play.
See, I didn't miss it. Yep.
There's Clear Sky. That's where it's placed here. Way south.
I don't believe Jim's with us anymore, so just wanted to do a quick shout out to Jim.
I think you're thinking Lockhart.
Yes, Lockhart. I'm sorry.
Jim Lockhart is
the
most amazing gamer. And yeah, we lost him a few years back.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Galani, also an amazing gamer.
Galani is
I love
fantastic.
Dearly. He volunteered for almost everything. So,
and he took our ribbing so well.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, we made fun of him constantly. Because he started off as a cleric of Foltus. No, it wasn't Foltus. Was it Foltus? And then he switched when we released the Alona meta orgs. He liked that one better, so he switched gods. So he kept having things released for the cleric Church of Foltus. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Alona written above it.
At least it was a
knew who
longbowman.
we were making fun of.
So just from me going through these docs, you have to have over 100 different meta orgs.
That's insane.
Because look, here's
like I said, Jay, I heard from BK players who traveled to the Atlantic. What do you guys call the Mid-Atlantic region in NCAA basketball terms?
We're Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah, and they would come back. They'd be like, that region was so cool. They did this, they did that, and we didn't really hear that a lot when players traveled to other regions quite as much.
We specifically wanted to make a home for any PC who wanted it or needed it. And like a lot of these orgs, no one ever touched it. No one ever did anything with it.
Geez.
But if they wanted to invest, it was there.
Like the Trevden of Hawkok.
And that's a massive amount of work. I mean, it's professionally laid out for the time. We're not doing probably InDesign. We're doing Word documents. We had to create our own templates from scratch. The RPGA did not give us, hey, here's a meta org book template. Chapter 1 should be this, and chapter 2 should be that.
I gotta give a lot of credit to Elisa Clary. Elisa Clary was a huge contributor and volunteer in year 1, and she was also a professional editor. And she is personally responsible for the level of polish on so much of our content. Well, her and Brad Lester, who also again was the unsung hero who made everything happen.
Okay.
He made sure the trains ran on time.
For myself, I went and got like a creative writing bachelor's. I had a bachelor's in history from the 90s. And then I went to get my GPA up, I went and got a bachelor's in creative writing. And I was doing all this editing for Living Greyhawk. And it was because of all my work on Living Greyhawk that my editorial chops were good enough to get me into Emerson's graduate program for publishing and writing in 2010. When I decided to go to grad school. Without the Living Greyhawk writing mods, editing mods, writing the Bandit Kingdoms meta org book or editing it, doing the certs, the formatting, and all that bullshit. It had to be in Word back in the day. I didn't really have access to InDesign because I was broke. It really taught us all a lot of different skills that I think we still use in weird different ways in our lives, like just dealing with crowd control. When I get bombarded with questions in my insurance job, I have to be able to prioritize which question is more important right now. Things like that.
The Ambassador's Stepchildren, what a name.
They were awesome. That was one of our gnomish orgs, if I recall.
Oh, yeah. He had a lot of stepchildren.
Yeah, it's
I kept calling everyone was his son. Listen, son.
But I think in here, this one says you do not have to be a gnome to be a stepchild.
Nope.
So, on the meta orgs, if we don't limit ourselves directly to year 1 through 5, if I recall correctly, one of the major themes we basically started to work on in 6 through 8 was, so we talked a lot about the Everlegati, we talked a lot about the Midnight Ravens, and they were very, very active secret orgs. For year 6, we had felt that like the Enosi Thaumaturgos and the other basically gnomish orgs had not gotten as much love. Also, one of the prominent retiring PCs at the time was a very, very powerful, very opinionated, very patriotic gnomish wizard, who basically ended up becoming the patron of some of these secret orgs and had some very, very strong opinions about how things should have been. And definitely started making some very interesting political waves as you guys went into year 6.
I got the dwarves up here, which we didn't even look at here. Church of Morden, Clangeddon, Army of Stone, Clan Underfoot, Clan Deepholm, Clan Stone Reaver, the Fury of the Mountain. Battle Ragers, uh-oh.
You can't have dwarves without battle ragers, come on.
And that was kind of a really good idea that came out of the Forgotten Realms books.
That came out of Ari Salvatore
Right.
novels.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's a good trope, the dwarven crazy people.
Okay.
Yeah, and the Army of Stone wasn't as much of a thing in the first 5 years, but we definitely wanted to like give that an opportunity to grow, especially as we did have a pretty strong dwarven player presence in the 5 year campaign, and we wanted to give them an opportunity to basically kind of, if they wanted to reinvest, build upon that.
Sure.
Cool.
Now, Mark had, told us he wasn't super invested into the canon because he was new to the setting. Eric, were you doing any canon steering when doing meta orgs or anything like that? Or were you guys like, yeah, whatever, Living Greyhawk Gazetteer, good. Anything older than that, we're not going to worry about? Or
Oh no, I was constantly digging through lore to find any little tidbit, any random sentence somewhere that I could draw upon.
right?
And that's why we got the Old Faith got structured the way they did. The Knights of the Watch, Knights of the, was it Discharge? No, was it Knights of the
Dispatch.
Showed up as well. But Geoff was always kind of its own thing. It's off to the side as opposed to in the domain of Greyhawk. There was one that we were using a great deal, would be this one.
Right. So
The Against the Giants by Sean Reynolds.
Yeah.
And we use I didn't want to do exactly that because I figured players had access to this and they could figure it all and they would now know everything. So we had to vary it up. So a lot of our stuff is inspired by this.
Right, because you couldn't use Dark Elves anyway.
Yeah.
That's a damn shame.
To ruin somebody's party in Sterich.
No,
Yeah,
I do have to give a lot of credit. I don't know how much of this is canon and how much of this is just Eric's pure magic, but I mean, Eric absolutely breathed, life into this game with the Welsh and the culture, and it made it really feel like its own like special place.
Well, it's kind of, you learned one of the tricks that George R.R. Martin uses a lot of times. If you want to have people have empathy, you make the character suffer. And we start off by making Geoff suffer miserably, like the Giants were just beating the ever-living hell out of it. And even worse, if they captured you, they would grind your bones to make their bread. And that just got people to really to empathize with the plight of the Geary, the fact they all were living in this one crappy little town that had no sewer and smelled bad. And our first inn was the 2-tent inn, which was literally 2 tents.
I love that name.
Eventually, the players got together and we built the Boar's Knuckle, and then shenanigans ensued in year 3, I think, on the board. And they burned the bar down.
Well, they didn't just burn it down. The PCs, like I think through the online board, like invoked like some demon or devil lord's name a couple of times. We're like, oh, okay, let me take that note real quick. And then we had an interactive, and the PCs, we labeled it as social interactive, and everybody showed up and everybody's role playing. And then halfway through the social interactive, we're like, all right, demons invade. And there's just like surprise battle interactive. You're there with your, bard, cleric, wizard, rogue, 5 multi-class, not a single point of base attack, not a second level spell. And we'll see what happens. So.
You just described a Bandit Kingdoms interactive, though. You're doing something, and surprise, demons arrive.
Yeah. We don't do that, which is why it really took people by surprise.
Right.
But
Well,
it was all PCs, like, they
your
did it themselves.
characters the players would have built the characters to fight the most common threat. Giants, Fae, whatever. And so when you throw a different thing at them, you could have a really neat fight where they fumble around and they're not as effective, and it can be scarier. When we threw giants at people in the BK, they weren't ready for it. They were ready for demons.
Shake it up. Keep on their toes. Another thing we were able to lore is we claim the College of Knaif.
Oh.
I had to do a lot of research and discussing with the Circle of Six. I said, like, we totally want an old lore bard group to be in Geoff because it makes sense. It's the Flanay group. We're one of 2 Flan countries left, us and Tenna, and we'd like to have one. And they approved us having the College of Knaif. Although we also went with the idea that the College of Knaif is not a physical location, it's a grouping. It's an association.
Mm-hmm.
So even the colleges, the buildings can still be burned, but the college continues. And you can actually join that. That's one of our middle orgs.
Cool.
Yeah, we touched on it briefly earlier, but I'll also note that like one of the big things that the meta orgs through their basically, unique basically role playing opportunities. Not only do they have their own little social boards for role playing, but like it was a pretty frequent, consistent thing where special missions were requested from the triad, and sure enough, like we get an author or a volunteer, one of the triad would basically pick it up, and like we'd let folks try and do a thing. And sometimes it was successful and sometimes it wasn't, but it told a good story. So
that was how you got picked to write full adventures, as if you were willing to write a special adventure for someone. And you would work with a triad member to get the outline done, and then we just kind of trusted you to write it.
We had a lot of the social interactives. We would have mini missions. So like, where a traditional module would be 4 hours, the mini missions would be a 1 hour mission. And if like you and a group of friends wanted to do a mini mission, you could do it. You could do up to 3 and like a social interactive or whatever. And like, we would often have one particular mini mission, for a given meta org, depending upon what the org was to what the social interactive was. So like, for example, if you were if you were a ranger and you were at one of them, then sure enough, there was a special mission for you. We also had in year 1, I think it was, we had the Olwithy War Games, which was the Rangers basically sponsored a medieval paintball tournament or whatever, and like people are out in the woods playing, and so like any registered member of the Olwithy definitely had like absolute bragging rights and got to take on a more leadership role in the actual like role playing and social and all that stuff as well. So
as you can imagine, all this would have crippled me, Mark, and Brad. We couldn't have done it. So we had to have a battalion of volunteers. I know we keep coming back to it, but it's true. We could not have done this without the 30 to 50 volunteers we had that were willing to be the point of contacts, the meta org coordinator for each one of these. Because if there was not a meta org coordinator for a particular group, it just kind of withered on the vine, because we had no time to go off and build it up. But they gave lots of opportunities for people to contribute, and people love contributing.
And it sounds like you all had a great time, and that's the most important thing. You really all just had a great,
Oh, if we do have Sam still in the group, I answer Casey. It wasn't Geoff that was going nuts with the magic items. That was Sam and Keelan down there.
Really?
Yes. We stayed within the lines.
We were super stingy, and I remember I apologize in advance, but I remember it was a particular yeomanry module in year 1 where folks were like, it's got a +1 weapon, it's flaming, and then like all the boards were like people talking about like we gotta basically set up a convoy, we're gonna travel, there's a convention we're gonna attend, we gotta get that sword before this battle, because like if we want to win this battle against some trolls, we need this flaming sword. Like,
wow. I knew some of that went on when people would talk about what access came in what adventures, because that was a Living City thing, right? People, the predecessor to Living Greyhawk people was Living City, the 2nd edition Living Campaign set in Raven's Bluff.
Yep.
I think. And very high fantasy, high magic, low level characters would have +5 swords because, they just were falling out of the sky apparently in that campaign. And some of the early Living Greyhawk Triad members had come from Living City, and so they were a little bit more loosey-goosey with the magic items. either they weren't necessarily Greyhawk canon experts like Mark here, and maybe they didn't get the difference in the vibe between Forgotten Realms and Greyhawk. At least the way I think many of us see it is Greyhawk is more middle magic instead of high magic. I used to say it was low magic, but me, Mid-Chemia, Raymond E. Feist books is low magic, just to give everyone where my bars are at. Anyway, in the Bandit Kingdoms, we were poor in years 1 and 2. Very low gold, very low items, magic item access. And then people would travel out of region years 3 through 8 or whatever, and you just see the Sheldamar Valley stuff coming out of the Omenry. And they had talking spears, intelligent magic items and things like that.
I was way more interested in putting prestige classes on hobgoblins than giving out loot, let me tell you.
I was looking at all my favors. Trying to build up our favor currents, yeah.
We eventually caved, but all of our intelligent magic items were evil. We had 9 lives stealer Bob.
Bob.
He had an ego 43, so no one could win that ego battle.
I will note that, one of my favorite things about the 3.5 back in the day was adding levels to monsters. You could never you come across a goblin in a field, and you're like, why is there one goblin? What is his deal? We didn't have to get fantastic beasts, or big name monsters in order to put the fear of God in PCs. And I remember we also had a very, very close hold. We at the triad level, we're not putting any hobgoblins in this world anywhere, in any modules, any interactives, unless it is absolutely APL +4, deathly murderous. You will never come across a hobgoblin who is not scary. And it's just we got to the point where PCs sell hobgoblin, they're like, whoa, let's slow up and let's check our potions and buffs real quick, friends.
So I know we barely scratched going in depth on the meta orgs, but I think we got a general idea of how there's so many, it's so varied. I mean, lots and lots of work here. You guys ought to be commended on everything you've done. Just it's crazy how much.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were trying to balance what you could get with what you had to what you had to invest. For example, if you look at the College of Knaith, the old lore bards that we had, you had to be human half elf with ties to Garrick nobility. You had to be able to speak Flan. You had to be a follower of one of the old faith gods, but not necessarily be part of the old faith. 4 ranks of diplomacy, 4 ranks to perform, 4 ranks and 1 knowledge, and be a resident of the Sheldamar Valley. Then you had to tithe 10% of your earnings per module to the old lore, and go through a 4 time unit long ritual to join the old faith. And that got you benefits. One is that you were considered a follower of the old faith for temple spell lists, which gave you more spells. You got a +2 reaction bonus when dealing with Garrick nobility or people worshippers of the old faith, which was almost everyone. And then you got access to a bunch of really cool feats and access to spells and prestige classes. And each adventure, you got 1 lesser favor. So this is a favor that would appear at the start of the adventure and would disappear at the end. So we didn't want it accumulating. So it was could not be saved for later use.
Yeah.
And lesser favors were just minor things like requesting a meeting and having that request granted. And then you can get access to some magic items. So we had 10 of them.
But to your point, there were so many story decision points that we were completely fluid with, and they were especially, it was also the region itself, the overarching arc kind of just lent itself to this. Cause progressively the army was retaking territory. And as you retake territory, there's a void. And it's okay, well, what happens with that land? Does a certain noble get that? Does the Grand March claim that? Does Keolan claim that? And if this noble takes over, well, he's sympathetic to the Seoul deities, for example. Suddenly, there's just a rally of Seoul PCs who are like, I'm throwing all my money behind this guy. Here's a pile of favors. Let's get him voted in, So, it was highly entertaining.
Well,
And that's what I love most about it, is it was a way to empower the players and bring them into the living campaign aspect.
yeah, and they get vested because they created a lot of the organizations. It's genius.
And we know from other regions like Vernon and Verberbonk, they created the town system that various other regions adopted, where players could create a town so that they could own property, because Living Greyhawk, when it began, didn't really have the system for I own an apartment or condo or house in Rook Roost.
True.
And that should be baked into the game. It's in the 3rd edition Dungeon Master's Guide, I think. Property prices. It's probably somewhere in AD&D as well. It just wasn't part of Living Greyhawk at first. But you got to give characters a home, otherwise they're just wandering murder hobos. And that's, to me, that trope is now super tired.
Well, it's funny too, because we, as some of the casters ended up getting higher levels, they're like, I want to build a house or a stronghold thingy or whatever. And like, okay, sure. They're like, I'm going to throw a wall of stone at this. I'm like, really? How many time units of wall of stone are you going to throw at this? Like, give me those time units. Give me those favors. And then like, sure, then maybe a particular meta org also raises in standing, in the region. That was something we absolutely paid attention to.
Well, guys,
so
good.
No, Jay, I was just going to say, what I think we need to do is a future second show where we actually go through the documents and talk about the individual orgs that were actually the more popular ones, the ones that had a lot of PCs in them or that affected the region, so that people can hear about these ideas you guys had.
Specific PCs too. Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Maybe like pick half dozen or so.
Absolutely.
I mean, just a deeper dive into because you guys created so many, and we talked about.
Well, I will also note there were a lot of orgs that like nothing ever happened with them.
That's fine. We can still touch on them and focus on the ones that.
There's still good ideas. There can be good ideas for people's campaigns.
Because this has been fantastic for the audience. I think Amy has learned things tonight that she can use in her game, and hopefully others as well.
Absolutely. So let's since we're a little over time here, we'll do some quickie shout outs. So Mark, you got anything you want to shout out that you're doing?
No, just a lot of home gaming, a lot of parenting. But I do.
What's your home gaming?
I am still in Pathfinder land.
1E or 2E?
1E.
Okay.
I still love my 3.5-ish, whatever.
Yeah.
Been running the same game, same group, for the last 12 years, same world. So,
nice.
Yeah, I'm having an absolute brain fart. It's funny, the particular group of characters we have right now, it's very empire buildy, and so like I deliberately had the characters create PCs who want to build their presence in the world, and early in the game they stumbled upon a diamond mine, and now they're going through all the things of like trying to incorporate a business. And like it's funny, I have things like profession lawyer and like contract drafting, like gloves of contract drafting. There's a lot of like ridiculous things. They did some surveying for a lightning rail. There's a little splash of Eberron. I love to draw from a lot of different places. So but it's the players are having a good time. I did have a character death last session. The PCs were traveling overland, and they came across a dozen goblins in kangaroos, because our goblins don't ride wolves in this land; they ride in kangaroo pockets. The goblins beat them on initiative, and I had 3 bow crits on a fifth level character, and 120 points later, he's down. I'm like, I don't know what to tell your friend.
3rd edition times 3 damage on a bow.
Yes.
And that includes the strength bonus in 3rd edition.
Oh my gosh.
3 times, not just once like it is in 5th edition.
I rolled 3 bow crits on the top of the first round on a PC. I was like, I'm sorry.
That's crazy.
Roll versus character gen.
I mean, 9d8 plus 9 times strength bonus.
Yeah,
and so in my world, the PCs have a lot of money, but there's nothing they can buy. Like there's no magic mart. So they're in the process of hiring a bunch of like mercenaries. They're going to chase down those guys. They did not win against the goblins. After my obligatory holiday session, the PCs had managed to abscond with 8 flying reindeer. So they flew away from the goblins, and they're in the process of hiring some mercenaries to go back and chase down those goblins and their kangaroos. So
Hey, Mark, if I saw goblins riding in kangaroo pouches, I'd be hopping mad.
Oh gosh. So with that, Eric, what do you want to shout out?
I have finally gotten the last adventure of the Moonshays up on the DM's Guild.
Nice.
Congratulations.
So Rising Shadows is now done. 60 adventures over 3 years.
6-0?
Yeah, I didn't write them
That's
all.
great.
I wrote 3.
But you were the plot developer, right?
Mm-hmm. Pretty much the same thing I was doing for Living Greyhawk. I did for Baldman Games for 3 years for the Moonshays.
That's awesome.
It was a lot. But boy, is it a fun ride. You can find it all at moonshays.com,
Nice.
which has a cute little graphic about how all the storylines fit together, and all links to everything that's on the DM's Guild. And I am currently working on a 5e update to the very first Living Greyhawk adventure I wrote, Gifts of the Fae.
Nice.
I'm going to see how much I have changed in 20 plus years. And the answer is significantly.
Yeah.
We have changed how we've written adventures since then. We're much more concise, use a lot more headers, and
Thanks,
put a lot more capabilities and flexibility back to the players.
Interesting. I'm not
So
surprised by the headers comment, because when I do my home game, I do like a shorthand adventure in Word, and I'm using a lot more headers. And then I'm like, if I ever flesh this out to sell, too much box text. Snip, 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 But
Yeah, I was guilty of that. A whole lot too much box
I
text.
think we all were back then. I think we grew up with first edition, second edition Beckme adventures that had the actual box text with the different color at box kind of thing. And
Some of them
sometimes
would
that
run
was
a page. That box text would
it could be pretty wordy.
So I'm trying to cut all that down to get just the basic, most important elements. And we get a lot more flexibility. I kind of like 5th edition more than 3rd. Probably because it's closer to my true love of 2nd edition.
The more I play 5th, the more I want to merge it with 3rd edition and take the best things from both. But I think if I had a holodeck, it would probably run on Pathfinder 1E Light. Very few splat books.
I could definitely see that.
And then I would home game things that don't make sense. Like, how long is a huge sized creature's whip? No one can answer that question in the 3.x engine, I think. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic.
That is definitely another topic. And I really like the slimming down on the rules, because now that I'm a little bit older, I want my games to run faster.
Right, absolutely.
Nothing worse than bogged down combat.
But since they did not pay us for any of these things, because it was all labor of love and for fun, I wanted to see if I could figure out a way to release this for people to play. But we'll have to see what goes out with the OGL.
Right. I would like to start converting to 5e. I think Pathfinder 1e sales for me tanked when they went to 2e. But with what's going on, the shenanigans, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. So I'll work on other projects.
There's no shortage of 1E content.
Pathfinder 1e?
Oh, yeah.
No shortage of content.
I mean, a lot of it got created, but you mean still being dropped?
Yeah, I do have one more story if we have another moment.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I had mentioned I did some writing for the Greyhawk Reborn stuff, and I was it was supposed to be roughly like 20 years later, basically same region, whatever. And so, as I had mentioned previously, like I had felt that like this for the secret orcs, I love the secret orcs, right? And I had felt that the gnomes really did not get as much love with their secret orc, and so I wrote an adventure and we basically play tested it. And it started off, it was basically a year one Greyhawk Reborn. And so the PCs are like they were tasked by the Chancellor to go off into the gnomish Stark Mounds and basically look around, see how things are going, and see how everyone's doing. It's a very happy-go-lucky adventure, whatever. Anyways, while they're there, they get a side quest, and it's like, hey, can you deliver this package for me? I'll pay you some gold, run it across town. They're like, I like gold, sure, why not, whatever. So they run the package across town. They deliver the package. Guy comes to the door, takes the package, thanks. They walk away. House blows up. And they're like, what just happened? And it turns out that the house had one of the Everlegati spies in it who was spying on the Stark Mounds, and the gnomes knew it. And they had the PCs deliver this bomb to basically kill the Everlegati spy. So the Enosi Thaumaturgos, now led by this morally curious gnomish wizard, was like sending a message back like, don't spy on me.
He prepared explosive runes that day, or
Basically,
blast fireball.
Yeah. So it was kind of setting a darker tone for, because at that point,
I'll say no surprise, yeah.
Khalees is married, and there's Kyosh presence. So, anyways,
Very cool. Casey, we'll expedite this with the remainders. What's going on?
Well, thank you guys both, Eric and Mark, for coming on.
Yeah.
Really appreciate this deep dive into Geoff. Again, one of the best regions I heard about from other players coming back to the BK. So this was great. As far as projects for me, I've got a couple that I've been simmering on. I've got a project called Too Many Gods. I think Greyhawk has too many gods, and I'm doing a plurality of being merging. I'm taking gods of the same alignments, general alignments, and portfolios, and I am merging them together so that they have different cultural aspects, but it's actually the same divine being.
I cannot wait to
different
see
planets.
this.
what about my cheese for weapon specialization for my obscure weapon?
Yeah, no, I
revere the god of cheese, so I can use my spiked cheese grater.
In this project, Greyhawk has Oworth has an overgod, like Toril has Ow, or O, whatever, AO. And mine is Tharizdun, an imprisoned former overgod of Oworth. So that's kind of the backstory behind that project. He went mad. He decided everyone sucks. He's going to kill everyone, and all the other gods rose to fight him and imprisoned him, and that's why Oworth doesn't have an overgod. Anyway, in my cosmology. Another thing, my home campaign, I'm running Ghosts of Saltmarsh. We are starting our 4th year of play of Ghosts of Saltmarsh. They are just about 2 adventures away from finishing it. They're in a in-between filler right now. On Saturday, we do 1 Saturday a month for 8 hours. Then they go to the Sty. And right now, my kind of behind the scenes bad guy is the Bone Shadow Sunaferal Bright Robes, the Iusian. He is hunting for Drowmidge's secret lair in the Azure Sea. So that's how I use a lot of Iusian stuff in my Ghosts of Saltmarsh because of the tiefling in the book who sells magic items. Spoilers. And then finally, I have a Monday campaign that is Candlekeep Mysteries. I do it as a Scooby-Doo adventure. All the PCs work in Candlekeep, and then the plot falls right in onto their head.
Nice.
And shenanigans ensue. So I don't have to worry about this whole, how do you hook it into your current campaign or whatever. They're literally, one of them is a guard in Candlekeep, and one of them works in stacks, and one of them is an entertainer, and they're all friends. And this campaign started a year ago, and they're about to do the 10th one, and they level after each campaign. So it's a very neat, they play one adventure at each level. And this way we'll actually get to see what higher level play in 5e looks like without it taking like 5 years or 10 years to get to 16th level or whatever. And I'm very much looking forward to getting to Tony's adventure, which, if I remember correctly from when Jay ran it, it's a 16th level.
Xanthoria, yeah.
Right. So that'll be really neat. We'll reach that probably at the end of 2023. And then my final project I alluded to earlier, I do want to start working on the unofficial Living Greyhawk history book. We've been doing these interviews for 3 years now. We've had Eric Mona and Jason Bullman and various other Stephen Radney McFarland, SRM, on the show. And there's a lot of history that needs to be saved because, as we all know, the RPGA is gone, right? It's no longer an active entity. And Wizards of the Coast is not making any effort to archive or republish any of this Living Greyhawk content. Now, I'm not going to be able to republish mods. That's not the goal here unless I win the lottery and do something stupid. But the history of how it came to be should be recorded. So I will start on that project as soon as I can wrap my brain around it. So that's all I got going on. Work's good, wife's good. So
Thanks for
Snow,
putting this
Massachusetts.
Together. I appreciate you putting this together.
Well,
Yeah,
no, thank you,
awesome.
Jay.
Yeah. Mike.
And Anna and Mike, we first started this. I was at the beginning of the show said our first one with Jay was January 23rd of 2020. We're
Wow.
starting our 4th year of doing these, and we couldn't do it without the interest from the audience.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, Mike, you
Well,
got 10 seconds.
10 seconds. Thanks for coming on,
Sorry.
Eric. You're like a regular. Mark, it was good having you. Your stories were great. Geoff is my favorite region to hear stories about. Casey, you did a wonderful job. Buy Casey's book if you can. And go to Greyhawkery for my newest blog.
Put the link in chat, Casey.
Got to give Mike his $5 per plug.
Extraordinary.
You give kick.
Anna, what's up?
I just uploaded to my website. I uploaded the 598 Atlas, the 2022 edition of the Atlas. So it's there, and I've got all the links. There's links to every page, and you can get them all combined in one zip, PDF or JPEG. It's 100 pages Atlas, 11 by 17. So you can use the PDFs and print it if you want to, and stuff like that. That's coming up. Now I'm heavily into Photoshopping for a couple of weeks. It will be Photoshop. So that will be coming up. That will be
awesome.
a deep dive post into the Shieldland stuff. That will be a lot of technical for my top patrons, and I will start getting some sneak peeks into cool areas and stuff like that is coming in, and there will also be another update on the historical map from the era of Flan back in that Flanese in a couple of thousand years ago, kind of project that I'm working on. More heraldry is coming too. We saw a little bit on the fantasy mapping show that is both elven heraldry and humanoid heraldry. So that's the big picture of things. Yep.
Awesome. Tomorrow night. Let's see if I hit a wrong button. Alrighty. Tomorrow night, we continue. We're doing an Age of Worms scenario part 3. Encounter Blackwall Keep. They defended Blackwall Keep. They're heading into the Mist Marsh. So I have put some of those pictures up on the internet. You may see them. That's tomorrow night. Infinite Dimensions.
Wait, have you converted that from 3rd edition to J?
Yeah.
1.J.
If I snap my fingers, dude.
Is that easy?
Oh yeah, he has a little army that works for him.
No, look. I don't want to sound like an asshole, but
because Age of Worms wasn't even Pathfinder 1E, right? It was 3.5.
3.5, but I mean, it's like I know what a Lizard Man elite. Here's the adventure photocopy, is printed, and I mean, it's.
I want to see some Council of Worms. Bring back that 2E stuff.
Oh
no, it's not Greyhawk, man. Right?
I mean, it's fun.
It's
It's fun.
Don't tempt me, or I'll run. I'll run Tail of the Comet. I'll run Tail of the Comet and torture everyone. How's that for 2E? Right? Oh my gosh, Gary Julian would go crazy if I ran that. This is an easy. They're all easy converts. Once again, I'm not trying to bash 3E, but I don't need 12. I don't need 12 columns of a stat block, right?
That's fair about
right.
The 3.x engine.
Right. It's just you get it. You know what it is. You back convert it.
That's why it would be the best holodeck.
Exactly. But do you have a reason that Patriots Look is not available in physical copy as a reprint? I know you're an OLOC expert because it's terrible. Justinius? No, I don't know. It's not a good adventure. It's really not that great.
I think you did a whole show on how much you hate that adventure.
I don't. It's not a matter of hate. It's a matter of why. I mean, the cool thing about it, the Ritter's March area is done in it, and that's pretty neat. But it's not really a good adventure. That and what's the other one up in Furiundi where you go all along the Border Watch? They're not that good. There was a lot. For example, everyone knows why Eric Mona said for the fundraiser, let's just go there. All right, let's just go there. And the fundraiser's coming up, Legends, right? Coming up. Eric Mona is like, I ran Gargoyle for him during a fundraiser, and it was so terrible they loved it. So what am I going to run?
Doom Grinder. Oh, Puppet.
Puppets and then some was the name of the adventure I'm running. So there you go.
Hey, quick sidebar here. Just speaking of terrible but loved modules, I just have to call back to there was a Geoff module in year 1 called Little Bit of Wood that everyone had a ton of fun with, but the module itself was 4 pages. It was literally you go to the woods and check on the logging and oh no, monsters, and like every DM, I mean, it's supposed to be a module, but every DM I've seen take that module has run that for 4 hours, and the PCs have had an absolute blast. The PCs love it, but like if you've ever run that module, it's literally like 4 pages.
There is no plot.
Right, exactly, Double F. Patriots Look, the fate of the Principality lies in the hands of a first level adventure group. You're exactly right. That's the synopsis of the adventure. I agree 100%. So, but that's okay. Hey, we all have, and hey, that sounds like a great idea with the wood, and everyone got to remember G1's only 8 pages long too. The original.
That's
G1.
insane.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you think about it.
But look, Saturday night we got a great. Besides 2 drink minimum, my other special group, the Slav Squad, the all female cast plus Josh, with special guest Heather Hex and Ancient Evils. This is going to take place in the southern Saline. So looking forward to that one with them. It's going to be a real fun one. That's Saturday night, and then this is Monday night, Anna. No Gabbin Sunday, everyone, because I'm not missing any championship games of football.
Football.
Sorry.
Okay, so
Yeah,
Monday.
So Monday.
I forget you're an Eagles fan, right?
I live 6 miles from the stadium in South Jersey. Yeah. So, yep. So no Gabbin this Sunday or in 2 weeks, more than likely with the Super Bowl. But we'll talk about that later. But so we'll probably continue our Dungeon Magazine adventures on Monday discussion, Anna, unless something else comes up at that point. But what a great discussion tonight. Really appreciate everyone's participation. Mark, Eric, thank you so very much. Here comes last call. You got 10 seconds if you want to get in the giveaway. I want to give you the winner treasures of Greyhawk. If you don't have this, if you do have this, we got other things, but this is such a fantastic 2E publication.
It really is.
And then one of the, I got a whole bunch of, including Ed Greenwood's The Endless Stair before Forgotten Realms existed. A lot of companion and expert modules here, courtesy of Patrick, Canadian Ancient Gamer.
Oh, cool. He was on earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Some people, still working. So I'm going to close this out. Hopefully I'll have my, it's got to be something with the update. Who knows? I'll figure it out. It's always something with
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. If you have to go deal with the little, that's perfectly fine. Thank you for hanging in there.
The winner tonight is Casey.
Wow.
Whoa.
I have a Treasures of Greyhawk hard copy, I believe.
Do you have Legacy of Blood?
I doubt it. I have a little cheat sheet list, but I seriously doubt it.
All right, I'll give you that. I'll send you that and X12 Scarda's Mirror. There you go. So give me some.
I love that mod.
I've been wanting to read more Becky stuff. I just can't find it.
There you go.
There you go.
It was not fixed, everyone.
No.
Scarda's Mirror is great.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
I'll send
thank you
to
Canadian Ancient Gamer Patrick.
Yes, exactly. And we will have a prelude show for the fundraiser, and it'll probably be the Monday after the Super Bowl, which will be the Monday before the fundraiser. So just note that we'll talk about all that. We're going to raid into Guild Superior. Sound good, everyone? hang in there.
Good.
Mark, Eric, Casey, Anna, Mike, thanks for a great one tonight.
Oh,
really
thank you,
appreciate
guys.
it.
Thank you,
Hope
guys.
everyone
Yeah,
enjoyed
coming on.
it. See you tomorrow night, 7:30, as we continue Sean Reynolds' great part 3 of the Age of Worms adventure. It's a fun one. So we'll see you then, and everyone have a great night. Sorry we ran late tonight, guys. I know, but everyone was. This is great when you have a nice chat, you know, and it
Yeah.
just goes,
Right,
go in any direction you want, which is all right. You're setting up the raid here.
I had a ton of fun with this. If you guys
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, Mark, you were
have more
brilliant.
questions,
Eric,
Yeah,
you were brilliant.
Oh, that was awesome.
We will
Yeah.
have.
And you guys saw how it flowed, Mark, right? You know, it works
Just keep
so
it
well.
rolls, and it goes by real quick.
Yeah.
All right, see if we can get over like 80. That would be awesome. 79. Look at that. 82. Perfect. 5, 4, 3.
Good night,
2,
everybody.
1. See you tomorrow night. 85
Good night.
total.
Yeah.
Raiding in there.
Good numbers.
What was that B adventure, Jay? I have B12, Queen's Harvest.
No, it wasn't. It was Scarred as Mirror.
Okay,
And
cool.
Legacy of Blood. CM9.
I do think that you guys should find time to grab Elisa Clary and Jose Ortiz, who basically ended up picking up the